All right, guys, welcome back to our podcast adventures. We're having fun here in Podcastistan, where we love to just discuss all kinds of awesome stuff that's going on in the world. And we have to do a shout out, and just one of my favorite episodes to do is Elite Journalism, Women Leading America's Intelligentsia, right? And this is serious stuff right here, because this really, it's kind of understated, and it's not always obvious, but this is the most crucial kind of detail and the kind of quintessential symbolism of America's greatness, is the fact that we have such an incredible sorority, for lack of a better word, of American journalists who are women, right? This is the exemplar and the ultimate kind of exhibition of our greatness as a country, is that we have so many courageous and super intelligent and profoundly independent-minded women in America who really shape our culture, right? And it goes past just the home front, where we know that women shape our lives as our mothers and our sisters and our aunts and our grandmothers, right? And as the most profound figures of our lives in our families. And that's an incredibly extraordinary and almost undefinable influence in our lives, in the culture here in America, which is so profoundly extraordinary. And I think that makes us different than every other culture in the world. And there are other Western nations, other countries a part of this kind of Judeo-Christian cultural tradition that have remarkable women as well. But America has the most profound women in the world, right? And we have gotten to this place where somehow we've lucked out, where we've found this stream of intellectual genius that we kind of get from our forefathers and our forebearers and for the founders of our country, that helped us to set the stage and create the environment where we have early on as a nation and as a culture and a people recognized the importance and the incredible weight of women thinkers and scholars and scientists, right? And I think that as I recognize the dilemma with the rest of the world is in this inability for other cultural traditions and nations to kind of catch up and to recognize that by not encouraging the greatness of half of your population and encouraging and incentivizing a societal requirement for women to be great and to be the greatest, and even get to this place in the larger global context where women can in so many ways overtake men in the society in their growing and more dominant roles as thinkers and activists and politicians. And it becomes almost typified, it becomes normalized among us here in America to recognize that women are great, and they're incredibly great. And in fact, the greatness of our society can be tied and measured back to this point where we began to take the limiters off and the governing cultural reins away from women. And in so many ways, fathers have found that our daughters can rise to a new level of accomplishment in this meritocracy, which makes no excuses and pushes women in the athletic realm in every single possible capacity to the very next level of achievement. And this is what you can see. It makes America the greatest country in the world. And in so many ways, this war on women is the only thing that endangers us as a people here in America and as a dominating political experiment, is the threat of degenerative political ideologies and Marxism that for so many people on the left, especially women on the left, begins to destroy their ability to be the most spiritually evolved and enlightened species of womanhood that has ever existed, right? And so on the left, there are all these pitfalls and dangers, like abortion, which destroys women who are infants in their mothers' bellies, and also destroys women's ability to be mothers, or to believe that they can be mothers, or to believe in the profound spiritual ascension that motherhood really is, by casting away the idea that it's like, oh, I don't want to be burdened with children, right? I just want to carry on and go on dates. I just want to have a sex life and just have orgasm, right? I want to have unlimited sexual fulfillment at all times, and I don't want to be slowed down or be hampered by children, right? And that's the ultimate deception and the ultimate destruction, as I can see, that we face as a people, as a society, that is a weapon directed in this war on women directly at the heart of womanhood. And so we have to recognize that in so many ways, these assaults on women, these cultural and philosophical and ideological assaults on women are really coming from men. There's so many women out there who have abortions because they're afraid. They're afraid because the man has ran off, right? They went out to have a party and go party with their friends, and they end up being convinced by some man to lay down and fornicate and have some kind of sexual fulfillment for the night. And then when the child comes, the women are terrified to face it alone, right? Because it is terrifying. And when the men are cowards and they're this weak, leftist cuck boys, right? And they don't stand up and face like men, face up to the responsibility they have to the future and to the past and to the human race, then this is what the most destructive terror that befalls women. It makes them afraid to face motherhood alone. It makes this temptation of child abortion, child euthanasia, this abortion procedure seem so reasonable. And so we as men have got to find a way to decide that we are not going to let this war on women, right, this spiritual annihilation and this temptation of self-destruction. And we have to take responsibility as men for the families that we begin to create with women, and we're not to touch women. We're not to look at them as sexual targets or to use them despitefully just for our outlets for our desires, right? We're to create families. We're to dedicate our lives to them. We're to offer them our undying love and loyalty and monogamy and sacrifice everything that's in us to put forward their needs, being the center and the heart of families, being the most deeply crucial aspect of a child's life. Can you remember when you were a child, you remember how your parents, they were the moon and the star, right? The sun rose and the sun set with your parents, right? Just to see them every day. They were the core of your sense of stability and emotional well-being in the world, was seeing them and having them with you at all times and taking care of you. And children face the most risky and destructive instability and emotional upheaval whenever their relationship to their mom and dad is interrupted. Everyone knows this, just goes without saying, how crucially important it is to be the strong backbone of the family that helps to support and offer intimacy and emotional security and strength to the woman as she has to go through this process of becoming a mother and laying down everything she has, laying her whole life on the line to offer up everything that she can give to nurturing and taking care of children. And if you've ever had a wife and had a child and sat there in the waiting room as she gives birth, you know how weak and helpless you can feel and how little you really have to offer to the equation of what's the profound bond that is really taking place between mother and child, right? So these are the things that we as men, intellectually mature and emotionally enlightened and evolved men of America, need to recognize that we have a duty, we have a solemn and ultimate responsibility in laying down everything that there is, everything we can possibly offer on this battlefield of protecting, supporting, and nurturing our women. Because in so many ways they're going to empty out their hearts and their emotional being and even the nutrients in their bones, right? They're going to pour it all out and lay it all on the line to bring forth this new generation of children, and we owe them everything, right? In so many ways we have to be a mother to the mother, right? We have to be the emotional security and the intimate vulnerability and the empathy and the constant stalwart of defense for our wives, right? And we owe them everything, and that is what defines us as men. That's what defines us as worthy before God. That's what shows us who is a real man. That's what separates the men from the boys, is when we stop just seeking out our own craven carnal urges and we begin to set our own needs aside as a secondary issue, and we sacrifice ourselves in the line of duty of taking care of women. And that love, that ultimate unflinching and unmitigated willingness to sacrifice ourselves for them is what gives them the strength, shows them their self-worth, and gives them the ability to return and reflect that love back to us. In so many ways, and so many times I see it over and over again, women are falling short of their respect and their love and their duty to their husband because their husbands don't love them. They're not willing to lay it all down. They're not willing to quit drinking. They're not willing to quit smoking. They're not willing to set their own needs and their own personal ambitions aside for her. And that's what she deserves. She deserves no less. There's so many families out here that are destroyed. There's so many stories we see of, a mother just killed her kids. She hung her children, right? There's so many women out there who have been used as sexual objects, but objectified as instruments of lust. And then when the consequences come, when the children are there and they need a spiritual warrior to support them and to give them everything they need, they're left alone. And then they're despised. And then they're castigated by the society because they were not able to do everything on their own. They were not able to be everything to everyone and be the husband and the wife and the breadwinner and the nurturer and the sandwich maker and the bed maker, and be everything. And so that's why in so many ways the women in our society, when we see them being crushed, it really just represents the lack of empathy and spiritual awareness and the lack of power of the population of men that we have in this nation. And we're always going to have degenerates. We're always going to have people that are falling through the cracks and who never really can rise to become their greatest potential, and in whom in so many ways become victims of these kind of demonic impulses towards murder and destruction and degeneration, and far from ever being healthy individuals who can protect women and children, right? They're the individuals we see in our society who are trafficking women and children, who are obliterating and destroying and cheapening life and the American family. And so these are the enemies of men, of the Christian men, the family men, the husbands and fathers in this country who are in the business of defending our futures and our future, their offspring and our progeny, protecting them against these predators. And so that's why we have to discuss here, we're at this kind of turning point, this inflection point within our civilization, where we can see the young people are under assault in the high schools and at the university level, where they're getting to this point where they have to make a decision, where they have to decide, and they have to reflect the values that have been imprinted on them and the nature of the principles that have been invested into their lives and their souls, whether they're going to follow in the tradition of Christian manhood and follow the line of succession of this spiritual awakening that is America, or whether they're going to attack it and go against it and destroy it in themselves and in the world around them, in the lives of the women around them. And so in so many ways, the women in the left are just products of the world that they see around them. And so many examples that we can point out in the school system where they're taught that they're just animals, they're just Darwinian protoplasms, just driven towards the need to eat and to survive at all costs. And we're so much more than that. We're so much more than some kind of Darwinian evolutionary drive, which is a not very sophisticated and not very clever justification for all kinds of harms and crimes. Just an excuse for just sheer laziness, for not rising to the highest, the most noble form of human integrity that we were made to be. But we were created as children of God. And when you don't know that, when no one is explaining who you are and what your destiny is, you can fall prey to all these political machinations that are just the providence of men like Marx, just trying to make women communal property for everyone to have sex with. Right? We don't need to have marriages. We don't need to hold our women sacred and honor them with our lives. We don't need to make ourselves vulnerable and reflect their value as the most important element of our commitment, right? No, these people just want us to be devolved into some kind of animalistic urge, and that was what suits them the most on the left. And that's what the most dangerous weapon against our nation and against our future, and it's always a war on women. It's always on the left, and they preach this idea of liberating women, but it doesn't liberate women to destroy their bodies and tattoo their faces and get face piercings and turn their hair purple and abort their children and to run around and destroy their value and their physical intimacy with sexual immorality, right, where they begin to view themselves as just an object of carnality instead of a figure of sublime elegance, right, worthy of devotion, right? Where's the devotion? Where's the sanctity of the left, right? They don't have it. They're just demonic and boring, self-destructive trash, right? That's what they drive women in the universities to become. They're always on this depopulation kick, right? It's always about convincing women to become homosexuals in some kind of Freudian shrinkage, driving our young people towards emotional insolvency and sexual depravity that just leads towards loose decadence and homosexuality, which produces no family, no children, no devotion. Not to say that every single person out there in a homosexual relationship is immoral, but many people who are being driven into these circumstances by political ideology and by rebellion against tradition and by just sexual depravity and predation, because many of these people are just driven by lust and they have to create homosexual counterparts that they can participate with, right? It's not about love or devotion, not for so many of these leftists. It's about just destroying something beautiful. It's about perverting someone's family morality. And that's why so much of these, on the left, so much of this homosexuality is connected with mental illness, which just goes into transgender deviations, right? It just becomes a process of fetishes, right? Breaking the young people down into pornography addiction and fetishes that ultimately annihilate the emotional and psychological stability of the people. That's why you want to bring this demoralization into play. That's why the left loves this demoralization process. It moves towards the destruction of America and depopulation and the erosion and the eradication of family structures. It's much more easy for these women on the left to be convinced to become lesbians or homosexuals when they are subjected to these weak and pathetic abominations which reject manhood. It's the cuckdom of the American manhood. It's the destruction of masculinity which drives these women into this Marxian decline. That's what we have to protect our daughters from. That's what we're working all the time to do, is to protect our children and our daughters from the perversity and the sexual depravity of these leftist, progressive, Democrat trash. Where they're happy to subject your daughters to perversion and to reinforce transgender homosexuality and all kinds of dissipation right in your family, but they don't want it in their family, right? They want their kids to be healthy and normal, but they're happy to inculcate sexual depravity in your family, right? And break down your family future, right? These are our bloodlines. These are our family progeny. These are our future family lines, and we need our children and our daughters to be healthy, to be happy, to be secure, to feel defended, to be honored and highly cherished, to be cherished and valued beyond any other element in all of society. Right? Our children and our daughters are worthy of devotion of the highest order. And so that's what we got to get back to. That's what we are witnessing here in America. We're witnessing a very highly refined, deeply enriched, ingrained, in-depth Christian morality that gives rise to the human spirit and to a new echelon, a new height of human civilization in our families and in our communities and in our civilization. It's very, very difficult and challenging and costly to attain and acquire this kind of highly sophisticated and deeply powerful family traditions. And it's easy in just one decade or one generation. It's delicate and easy to destroy. That's where we have to look out for our young people and look out for the kids on these tablets and on these phones being subjected to pornography and sexual depravity on these devices. It's becoming a problem. You can see that younger and younger kids, 12, 13-year-olds, getting rape charges. It's totally profane. It's a profanity. It's an abomination. It shows you what is happening here. And as we are getting to this place where we're rising as a people, the dangers and the pollution and the corruption and the corrosion that is existing within this technology and with the advancements of the internet age and the cyberization comes with all these pitfalls and all these terrible dangers to our young people. All right, so we got to jump over to do another little clip here. We have to discuss this whole issue and kind of flesh out this massive corrupting influence within human society in America related to pornography and child pornography, and how destructive and how totally debased and depraved sexual imagery is. And we have this incredible author here on American Thought Leaders, Kristen Jensen, and she has a new book, Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, and she's a specialist in this particular area. And of course, we can't listen to the entire interview, but we can just play a good, insightful portion of this discussion to break down how traumatic and how devastating the consequences are for young people and for kids and for the development of healthy relationships and normal human families. And I think that the entire deformity of the progressive left and the perverted transgender abominations in this country, the entire human void of perversity that is destroying and crashing the American society could be traced in its roots back to pornography and porno addiction, and the way that this unnatural fixation and deviation of human anatomy and human sexuality, how disordered it becomes within the human psychology when we think about the progression from, if you go back in time, from Playboy magazines to now the internet, maybe 50% of the internet just full of totally putrid and toxic images of deformed human. I guess you couldn't really call it sexuality. It's more of just human pollution. What takes place between a man and a woman has nothing to do with what you can see, the depraved and abominable activities that are being filmed and photographed, which are just this degraded and debauched depictions of human intimacy. And those kind of images can destroy a child's well-being and set them up for an addiction and a warped sense of human relationships going into the future, and can poison their relationships with other individuals. And in the sense of the left, you can see that it's mass producing an entire generation of demoralized individuals who can no longer carry on a healthy family relationship or produce healthy families, or in many cases they can't reproduce at all. The dysfunction of pornography is so disruptive in their lives and creates such a dissipated pattern of masturbatory behavior that they can't even carry on a regular human relationship that is likely to result in a family or children, right? That's just the fundamental underlying facts. So let's listen to this American Thought Leaders conversation and break this whole issue down a little bit further and confront what is probably the most catastrophic corruption of human society here in America, and also the least discussed and least talked about.
It's been my contention for a while that this ubiquitous use of pornography in our society is a huge, a destructive force in the social fabric, and specifically around children, because of the availability of the internet basically on every screen, practically. And this is the thing that you know most about, but explain to me the scope of this problem.
Well, the scope is huge. Children are viewing pornography. They have so much access because they have devices that are connected to the internet. They have apps, social media, and they're stumbling onto content. And the porn industry is not just sitting there waiting for kids to show up. They are actively pursuing them, because if they can get them hooked, then of course, they've got lifelong members or lifelong, people that are going to be watching and viewing and paying for premium subscriptions, etc. Pornography really hurts children. Back in the 60s, Rachel Carson wrote a book called Silent Spring, in which she said, look, this DDT is affecting the young, the little tadpoles and the eggs and the eggshells and all these things affecting the young. And that's when we know we have a crisis, and we have a public health crisis. Pornography is a public health crisis because it is affecting our children, but nobody seems to want to talk about it much, right? I shouldn't say nobody, but it's something we don't really want to admit, how much pornography is harming and hurting our children in so many ways.
Well, let's dive into that. Like, can you give me a sense of the scale? I mean, you there must be some numbers out there on how many kids are affected, what ages they're starting to look at, girls and boys.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the age. You know, what's the average age that kids view pornography? When you look at retrospective studies, they come up with 11, 12, 13 years old. And these retrospective studies are done because you can't go into 100, elementary schools and say, we're going to talk to the kindergartners through the sixth graders and ask them if they've seen porn. So we're not able to do that. We're only able to ask older teens and young adults, when did you see pornography?
And the reason you don't ask, just to be clear, is because you're kind of introducing it to them that way, or why?
Yeah, I don't think you get permission. There's an ethical,
Yes, of course.
So to set up the gold standard study would be difficult. So they do retrospective studies. So one study in Jakarta said that of the 4th to 6th graders that they were able to talk to, 97% of them had seen pornography. When you look at Common Sense Media's study, they say 15% of kids under 10 had seen pornography. I think whenever you give a child a device, like a smartphone, pretty much that's when they're going to start seeing porn. And kids are getting these devices younger and younger. And I believe that the average age is much younger than 11. So that's one part of it. When you think about a child and their development, their normal, natural development, pornography is really going to negatively impact their cognitive development. There are studies that show that kids have cognitive issues. The kids that frequently look at pornography have cognitive delays almost. It affects their mental health, and we could talk a long time about the mental health issues, but there are many studies that show that children who look at pornography have higher rates of depression, anxiety, suicide, lower self-esteem, and we're seeing so much of this across the board, so much more depression, so much more anxiety in kids. Body image issues, premature sexualization,
right.
Which leads to riskier and earlier sexual activity.
Well, let's talk about that, because I read a statistic which I found just absolutely horrifying. I'm sure you know it, I'll get you to tell me, but just that a lot more of the sexual abuse that's happening right now is children doing it to each other, and I don't even want to think about that.
Yeah.
But explain that to me.
Yeah, well, child-on-child sexual abuse, and sometimes it's called child-on-child problematic behavior, has skyrocketed. So when I first started talking about this issue, it was at 40%. And I thought that was really bad.
Wait, 40% of all child abuse?
40% of all reported child abuse cases were perpetrated by minors, by other children.
That's been the case in the past? You're saying it's higher than that?
It's now 70%. So what's happened?
You don't think about that. I mean, we think about child abuse. We think of it happening, and we know it's often adults that are related to the families and so forth. But you never think about the children doing it to each other.
Right, and it used to be some family member, that is the predator, and that's still the case when there is an adult predator. It's usually someone known by the child. However, it has become children on children. That is the majority of the cases, and it's fueled by pornography.
Let's just kind of break this down a little bit. This is just, every aspect of thinking about this is absolutely horrifying. But it's not that probably most of these kids aren't predators. I mean, let me state a few assumptions. I don't know the issue at all, but they're not. Are they just acting out what they saw in the films, or or are some of them being turned into these predators? Like, what's happening?
So let's talk a little bit about the brain of a child. Children are imitative, right? That's how they grow up into adults, right? They imitate, and any parent knows this. They see their child imitating them, imitating how they talk, what they do. Kids love to imitate. But when you add in the factor of pornography, now they are seeing pornography. It is not surprising that some of these children want to go ahead and act out what they see in pornography. And we're seeing that more and more and more. So when I got started writing Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, the reason I got started doing it was because of a young man, 17-year-old, who was sexually molesting his younger brothers and sisters, from the 14-year-old down to the 4-year-old. And pornography was involved in all of that. And so I talked to him like 6 years later, and he told me that he'd gone in his state, there was a training, there was a program, treatment program. So he was in this treatment program with 8 other boys. Not one of them had a hands-on predator or perpetrator, right? They had not been sexually abused by a person. It was porn. Porn was the perpetrator that got them then to act out on their siblings or cousins or other more vulnerable children. And that was years ago. So we see this over and over and over again, where children, imitative, right, view pornography, act out on other children. And one woman in my area actually contacted me, and she told me how she was, during one summer, she was watching a 10-year-old boy in the neighborhood because his mother, single mother, had to work. And, most of the summer was going by. Everything was fine. He was playing well with her kids. And then one day, he took the 7-year-old daughter, her 7-year-old daughter, into the bathroom, shut the door, and started to try to do sexual things with her. So, this mother obviously found out and called the boy's mother and told her what happened, and she broke down and crying and said, 3 weeks ago I found that my son was watching porn on the iPad. And so all summer long he's fine, and then he starts watching porn. And then this happens. Now, I can't say, yes, this caused this. But I have so many stories like this. And you speak to anyone that's for example, the people that are helping kids that act out sexually on other kids. They all will talk about pornography privately, right? No one seems to want to talk about it out in the open.
Why?
I don't know. I would like to know that, because I also have gone to child abuse, prevention conferences, and you don't hear a lot about pornography on the stage from the presenters, but if you talk to them in private, they will tell you, oh yeah, pornography is definitely a factor here, definitely a driver. I don't know why.
So this comports with my own kind of thoughts about this, which are not terribly educated. It's just my sort of observation from having talked to lots of people. I suspect that a lot of adults are watching porn, and they don't want to admit it because it's shameful, obviously. But it's just, I've learned a bit about how addictive many things in our society are, never mind things which are just kind of naturally deeply addictive, like pornography itself, right? And I suspect it's probably a large crisis in itself, and because of people's shame, this is a hypothesis, obviously, right? Because of people's shame, they don't want to talk about it. That's because you tend not to want to talk about the things you're ashamed of.
I agree, but there's also this kind of idea out there that if you're anti-porn, you're sex negative, and you're kind of, anti-sex. And I'm like, I think porn is sex negative.
That's horrifying, and you're right. No, that makes perfect sense, but it wouldn't have occurred to me until you said that. So somehow you have to sort of be, appreciative of it. What a mind job.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I have many people come up to me and say, especially men, I wish my parents had had your book.
Let's talk about it before you start talking about your book. So, no, because you have written a fascinating book. I mean, there's nothing else like it remotely that I looked, right, to see good pictures, bad pictures. Tell me about the book.
Yeah, so Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. I wrote when I found, this friend of mine, her son was, sexually molesting his younger brothers and sisters. Porn was involved. So I went to look for a resource and couldn't find anything. And I did a little more, looking around on the internet. And I just figured, we can boil this down for a 7-year-old. And so I wrote Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. The whole point is to model parents talking to their children. That's really important, to open that conversation. And then to give kids a definition of what pornography is in an age-appropriate way. So you could read this book to your children even before you've kind of started those conversations about sex. So a definition so they can recognize it, a warning so they understand why it's dangerous. It's not good enough to just say, porn is bad, don't look at it, So a warning about its harms. And in my original book, I talk a lot about how it becomes an addiction. And then third, a plan. So they know exactly what to do when they see it. So a definition, a warning, and a plan, all set in a conversation with a mother and a father who are open and explaining these things to their children, because that's what I want to see. I want to see parents doing that with their children. And then I have another book, Good Pictures, Bad Pictures Junior, and parents asked me to write it for younger children, which was a shock to me. But every kid's on an iPad. I mean, every 3-year-old's on an iPad, and they need to be warned as well.
I just want to comment on this, too, because you cited 2 studies. I think the one in Indonesia was 4th to 6th graders, and it was almost everybody had seen it. And the other one was 15% of under 10 and under.
Yeah.
That's still enormous, whatever that, and there's, of course, a huge range in between that, and maybe there's cultural differences as well. One of the things that strikes me here is, as a parent, if you're hearing, hey, there's a book that you're going to, you're kind of going to expose your kids to pornography or the threat of pornography or something. I mean, some parents might be thinking, hey, aren't I, going to start to groom my kid on pornography here or something? Right? That's a very legitimate question.
Yeah, absolutely. And parents do fear this. What if I start this conversation with my son or my daughter, and then I arouse their curiosity and they go out and look? And there are those kids that they have to touch the hot stove, right?
I'm that kid.
You're
no,
that
and
kid.
I can tell I'll share some of my own thoughts about it after, but please continue. Yeah.
Yeah. But my argument is this. You have 2 choices. One is to cross your fingers, put your head in the sand, hope your kid doesn't ever see it until maybe after you finally get the courage to start talking about it, or to be proactive. And that first plan has not been working. So to be proactive is to start and to open this conversation. It gives children a vocabulary, right? It makes you a safe person to talk about these things with. And if you do it right, there's not going to be shame. There's not going to be judgment. So even if your kid goes and runs out and touches the hot stove, first of all, it's still safer because you're still continuing those conversations, continuing to educate that child, building a disposition of wanting to and knowing how to reject pornography and knowing why.
So with that little bit, that little clip there, we're just going to leave it, and we'll have in the show notes the rest of that conversation, which is a crucial and pretty much devastating conversation, as you can see. And this is what parents are up against. This is what American society is up against, and individuals are facing as the ultimate dilemma that we have to kind of grapple with. And I think that this is going to be an underlying substratum of what is the complication and the definition of what is the decline of America's society, where we see unhealthy and deviant individuals and broken families and people who ultimately you can see are not faring very well in the society. This is a great part of the difficulty that people are struggling with. The difficulty that people are struggling with, they don't know how to have healthy and clear human interactions because of this toxicity and this corruption that just hits humans, hits children, hits people in the soul, wilts their ability to have a human relationship in a healthy way. And this is a conversation that we as Americans are not having, right? You have all these transgender, Antifa, leftist queers running around. They're not only willing to destroy themselves, but to destroy the society around them, or to take their own polluted and destructive, perverse nature into a classroom with children, right? These people have no shame and no limits because they have been preyed upon and have given in to the seduction and the antipathy that comes along with a deluded and jaded personality. And these people become mentally ill, they become neurotic and unstable, and we are just treating these totally debased human beings as if they're just choosing a political outlet, right? And this goes way past politics. This goes to the degradation of the human mind, which becomes totally polluted and unrecoverable to the extent that we are trying to create natural, affectionate, and healthy and wholesome human families who can reproduce, who can carry on correctly in a normal society. And this is what the Judeo-Christian culture is up against. It's up against this conflagration of human decay. And this kind of perversion is not natural. It's not acceptable. It can't be normalized. Right? You can't couple an open flame and a torch with a gasoline can, right? They can't live side by side as neighbors and hold hands and everything be kumbaya, right? This is creating a disaster, and that's what we're dealing with. And I think we're looking at the consequences of that every day, all throughout social media. I think that the final stages of this, once it becomes incorporated within a society or culture, you could look at Islam, who just normalizes rape, torture, child molestation, child rape, becomes totally acceptable. It becomes the way of their lives, right? They don't even question it. They don't even struggle against it or even have to be conflicted because they have a source of inspiration in their writings from their religious perspective that allows and permits this. And so that's why you see the total dissipation, the total destruction and annihilation of Muslim cultures around the world. While Elon Musk puts rockets into the orbit, you have these Muslim countries who still ride around with a donkey and a cart, right? And whatever wealth, whatever civilization that they have developed has just been purchased from the West, including you can look in Saudi Arabia and their oil refineries or Aramco or any of their construction endeavors in Dubai, right? All that is just transplanted from the West, and they are ultimately third-party customers for these features of their society that they can't develop themselves because they're totally deviant against healthy human, natural, emotional and spiritual and psychological inclinations. And they have taken to try to normalize or enculturate aberrant and demonic and destructive human customs that only produce corruption and aberrational and sickened social conditions, right? So women can't have rights, women are treated like animals, children can't grow with strong human experiences, right? That's why you see the West outperforming Muslim countries by 1,000 to 1. That's why we have women and children who can read, right? And we have write and become scientists and become, right? They can fully use their intellectual capacity because they're not beaten down and stunted the way the Japanese used to tie the geisha in their little tiny shoes, and they would have deformed feet, right? And they would wrap their feet in these tiny slippers so that they would grow with deformed feet that couldn't walk properly, right? That's what we see as the consequence within these unfit and unhealthy societies around the world, who ultimately embrace human perversity, reject the Judeo-Christian and scriptural worldview that holds these particular conditions like pornography, like the social acceptance of beating women or chopping their heads off or stoning them, right? The trauma of that, the traumatization of that throughout the whole society deforms the whole society. So without going into an hour-long lecture about that, let's once again turn our attention back to our program here, because we are talking about elite journalism, the incredible Western institutional genius of women leading America's intelligentsia. So let's get into it some more.
table is cold in the way only metal can be. She came in with her hands still trembling. They sedated that first. The incision follows the sternum, where the longing used to pool. We remove it carefully. It tends to cling. The part that remembered his voice, extracted. The part that watched the sky for no reason, extracted. We catalog each piece with clinical patience. Nothing is lost. It is simply relocated outside the body. Her breathing steadies. This is normal at this stage. We close what was open. We still what was turning. She will wake without the weight of wanting. This is the procedure. This is what she agreed to.
We can't maintain such a high trust, social balance, and honor system of integrity if we don't fight and go to war against the poisonous and toxic venom that the leftists are trying to introduce to our young people. So that's why when we see an individual like Savanah Hernandez from Turning Point, we've got to go to the mat, guys. She is the perfect example of our elite journalists, our women leading America's intelligentsia in this country, making America great, a future wife and future mother, a future champion of American greatness. And just to see her being kicked around and slapped down and just trashed like that by the left, it's just absolutely disgusting. For them to be like bouncing dildos in her face and just trying to do everything they can to sexually exploit and turn her into, and it's a perfect example, just having them put those kind of sex toys in the video. It's the perfect example of the attempt of the left to rape, debauch, and utterly pollute our families and our daughters and our wives and our children. And we should be pissed about it, guys. We shouldn't be taking this anymore. We should go down there with baseball bats and beat these people within inches of their lives. If we had any balls, if we had any sense of ourselves, if we had any courage like our forefathers, if we would show this to Thomas Jefferson and George Washington, right, they would be stacking bodies. It's not just a meme. It's not just a meme to put on social media. We should be going to fight and going to war for our women and children and our daughters in this country. So Savanah Hernandez represents the perfect example of a beautiful and super intelligent, super talented, incredibly brave, the most wonderful example of elite journalism that we have in this country. So let's hear. We're going to go to some clips here. We're going to discuss some of her work. We're going to notice how incredibly symmetrical the features of her countenance are, right? Incredible radiant beauty. That's what we got there. That's what we got in America. We got radiant, incredible beauty, and we got the brains, right? And we got her out there doing the yeoman's work, taking it, the culture war, to these depraved monsters, going into the lion's den. These orcs, these are orcs of Mordor, waving around their sex toys in the air, right? Shrieking and cackling like hyenas. And if it wasn't for the police, it wasn't for law and order in this country, they would have ripped that woman limb from limb. They would attack us. They would Charlie Kirk her, right? And they would laugh about it. That's what they want to do to us. And we should go to war with it, guys. There's no more mincing words and talking in jargon and half measures, right? We should culturally, as a people, not as individuals, we should get together, we should step out in a battalion, we should go to war as a political movement, and we should put an end to this. There's no reason on God's green earth why we have to live with these assaults, live with this culture of degradation that's destroying our women, that's destroying families, that's polluting our households and our family units in this country, this prevailing culture of men leaving women to just rot on the side of the road with abortions and feelings of insecurity. We're already asking them to put themselves on the line and to trust men who are just going to use these wicked and and vile whoremongers. They're always on the left, right? You're going to have no Christian Republican men out there participating in this, right? Real men are going to look out, defend their children, defend their women, and try to protect their families and their sons and daughters. And that's when you get a real man, when you have some skin in the game, when you have someone at home that you have to look after. You have people relying on you, people who are waiting for you to make it home at night so you can provide for them, and who won't be right that night or ever again if you can't get home. And this culture of men, just weak, pathetic, soy boy trash of the left, who can't even find a way to reproduce. And if they do, they can't even find the testicles to go and stand up and defend their women and stand by them as they go through this process of bringing children into the world. It's just disgraceful and it's shameful. So it's time for us to call it out. It's time for us to make an issue out of it. It's time for us to, as a culture and as a people, as a political power, we need to speak out against it. Men who will not take care of their families. I mean, nobody's perfect, right? People get divorced. They get married again. They have, we have children from other marriages. We do our best. We do the best that we can. No one is expected to be perfect, but with what we're given, a lot is required. A lot of responsibility and duty falls on our shoulders, and we have to rise to the challenge. We cannot just run away from our responsibilities as men. And if we do, we can't be taken seriously. We cannot be looked at as serious individuals if we impregnate women and pay them to have abortions and run away like cowardly little fuck boys. Sorry, I'm supposed to be watching my language. But that's what they are. That's what we become as men. If we just are there ejaculating, using women as some kind of like sexual sex doll to ejaculate as a receptacle for our sperm, a sperm receptacle. That's all we can see in the incredible gift of God that God gave to us when he made Eve. And we can't see that our responsibility and our duty as men in the society and then in eternity is to stand up and to face up to our responsibility as men. Just trying to run around masturbatorily, rubbing our genitalia on whatever we can get away with, right? It's disgusting. We shouldn't accept it in this criminal culture, in this disgusting rap music, in any kind of music. We should, in every single way, at all times, be denigrating, disrespecting, ridiculing, and spitting on these men who will not do what is right and what needs to be done. And to see these individuals throwing Savanah Hernandez down like that, it's just totally disgusting. So here, let's go listen to Savanah Hernandez. Let's make a point to honor her and to lift her up, to show her the due respect and the due diligence that American society owes women like this. Women of integrity, women of power, women who have courage, and who are the greatest example of who we are as a people. And let's kick dirt. Let's just, let's just crap on the left and their denigration of women and just laugh at the joke of the idea that they are somehow liberators of women by trying to convince them to not have children, not have a family, not be worthy of honor and of virtue and of devotion. To just think of themselves as some working widget that just needs to go in the job market and make a lot of money. And there's so many women out there. There's an entire podcast category of episodes of podcasts we could listen to that discuss how unhappy women are. They get in their 40s and 50s and never got married, never got a man devoted to them, honoring them, just basically worshiping them, giving them the Charlie Kirk treatment that every woman deserves, to be put first, to be highly respected and highly honored. Women make mistakes. Women are not perfect. Women often miss the mark. But we're here to stand in the gap for them, to stand up for them, and to push forward in this warfare, and to protect and honor and hold sacred our women in this country, which is the least that we can do. All right, guys, it's another awesome word from our wonderful sponsor, wendyslimited.com. wendyslimited.com has all the hottest new boutique couture designer fashion trends, and wendyslimited.com has been such a really generous sponsor and just really has been working with Looking Glass Forum and all of our projects. I hope you guys will go take time out of your day and support us by going to wendyslimited.com. wendyslimited.com has just such an incredible catalog. It's really just Wendy's personal catalog of fashion couture brands, and you can really get them from her. A lot of fashion brands out there do not allow resellers. They do not allow people to ultimately, open a shop and resell their brands, because their brands are so kind of elite and so hard to access. But wendyslimited.com has a special selection of private items that Wendy has in her collection that she will sell to you personally from her own catalog. So Wendy's Limited catalog is available to you, and she is out there to be an awesome resource for women out there. And I guess if like weird dudes also want to buy stuff, you can also buy women's stuff. Anyone can buy women's stuff from wendyslimited.com. And you are free to check out wendyslimited.com and to participate in this awesome, really incredible resource, wendyslimited.com. Please check it out. All right, so in order to discuss this whole issue of the difficulty that so many of these women's liberation fundamentalists and some of these feminist groups, the feminist thinkers have to struggle with, is the fact that they will skip having a family and skip having children, and later on in life have to suffer the consequences of having chosen this kind of narcissistic dilemma of putting themselves first and missing out on what is the actual function and nature of life. And when they see other people have families and they see other people have the fullness and the joy and the tranquility of having a husband and children to take care of, and the grandchildren, and just participating in the human family and passing on progeny and putting your offspring into the future who will carry on your bloodline and your genetics and carry on to participate in life in the future, and just missing out on that entirely is completely absurdly foolish. And you have to be a short-sighted imbecile not to see that you missed the entire essence and spiritual awakening that occurs in the human experience if you just trade all of that away just to have some extra income, right? And just to spend all your days alone, focusing on your own kind of self-centered, masturbatory self-adulation or whatever that is, whatever happens to people where they just become like an old maid, an old cat lady, and all the kind of like psychological processes and the neurotic frustration that just kind of justifies all that and tries to make sense out of it. Yeah, I think I made the right decision. I'll just sit here alone and have a cup of tea, And so in order to really address the kind of fallacy that takes place there, we have Jordan Peterson here. He's going to be on with Chris Williamson discussing, have women been lied to about the supposed liberation that they will get if they imprison themselves in a life of misery, right? So we'll play a couple clips here to kind of address that now.
Do you see the ONS data that came out a couple of weeks ago that said for the first time ever since records began, 50.1% of women are childless by 30? So there are more women without children at 30 than there are women with children. The first time ever.
Well, so this is somebody clipped a part of one of my podcasts, I believe it was, where I was talking about what our society does to 19-year-old women, or 18-year-old women, 19-year-old women. We just lie to them all the time. The first lie is there's nothing more important than your career, more or less by definition. So that's the first lie. The second lie is there will be nothing more important to you in your life than your career. So that's the second lie. And then the third lie is there should be nothing more important in your life than your career. So that's the third lie. And then implicit in that is the idea that children are a burden, and that the idea that women should have children is part of the oppressive patriarchy and should be resisted. And who are men to tell me what I can do with my body? And hey, fair enough, and et cetera, et cetera. Now, I've worked in female-dominated occupations my entire life. For example, I worked as a daycare worker way back when that was like probably 80, something like that. And there were no men doing that, but I really liked kids, and so that was fun. And I worked for social services in Alberta in the in the childcare department, and then I've been working as a psychologist, either training or as a psychologist since then, and that's been a female-dominated enterprise increasingly as the years went by. But even when I first entered it, so I'm in the post-female in the workplace generation firmly. I never experienced the world except as that, and so I've watched women progress through their professional careers at every level of attainment, from the lowest to the highest, and observed what happened, and relatively, I would say, bias-free, because I didn't know. And what I've seen is that as women progress towards their late 20s, there's a psychological transformation, and what happens is that they place less emphasis on their career and way more emphasis particularly on having a child. And that really reaches a crisis point around 29 or 30 for the vast majority of women, and their attitude flips. And I've seen it flip very dramatically with many women. And I suppose the most most convincing evidence of that, I worked with high-end lawyers in Toronto for about 10 years. I was part of an organization. We went to law firms, high-end law firms, and said, send us your most productive people, and we'll help them iron out whatever wrinkles there might still be in their life. And the advantage to them is that things will go better for them, and the advantage to you is they'll be even more productive. And there's a good management dictum, which is pay the most attention to your most productive people, because they're bringing in the bulk of your revenue disproportionately. And so I worked with men and women who were at the peak of their careers in a very difficult enterprise. And so these were women who were generally very attractive, well put together physically, pretty stable psychologically, extremely conscientious, very, very smart, and high achieving from like junior high all the way through high school, university, law school, onto the top firms, rocketing up through the ranks, full partnership by the time they were 29 or 30. And all the law firms, all the women bailed out, all of them. The law firms couldn't keep them. And I was really, and I talked to the women a lot about this, because I was very interested in it, because I knew the law firms were bending themselves over backwards and tying themselves into knots trying to retain these women, because why wouldn't they? Just being greedy capitalists is enough. They don't want to lose their high-performing women because they're performing at the highest level, and they couldn't keep them. The women wanted to have 9-to-5 jobs. They wanted to bind the job so they could have a life, and that was especially true once they got interested in having a child or had one. And what they really came to was a very interesting realization. So because they were highly conscientious women, they sort of did their duty and worked hard and diligently and didn't pop their head up to ask questions. They were in junior high, they got the best grades. They were in high school, they got the best grades, and so on, all the way through, right till they reached partnership. But that's sort of an apogee, right? You hit partnership in a senior law firm, it's like you're at the top of your profession. Well, then what? Well, so then they looked around and they thought, here I am with all these like hyper-competitive men, perfectly willing to work 80 hours a week nonstop to stay at the top. What the hell are they doing? Because that's the real question. What is it that characterizes this small percentage of hyper-competitive men? It's not. You can assume that that's how everyone should be, but first of all, that isn't how everyone is. Or you can flip that and say, well, there's only a small minority of human beings that are willing to do this, to work flat out 8 hours a week. I mean, they're certainly being paid for it. Let's make no mistake about that. But, well, what about the rest of life? Well, that's what the women asked. Why am I doing this? And that's a great question. Well, for men, there's a different answer than for women. It's a really different answer. And it isn't like the men are exactly thinking this through. It's more like this is an integral part of male motivation. The more successful you are as a man, the more women like you.
But the problem that you have now is that as women are getting better educated, with more employment, more status, more prestige, they compete themselves out of their ability to find an attractive mate. as women raise up through the dominance hierarchy, and this is
Competence hierarchy.
competence hierarchy, sorry.
Okay.
Who's going to tell women the equal access to opportunity that you have recently just acquired? Actually, what that's doing is it's making it more difficult for you to find a mate that you're fundamentally attracted to.
Yeah, well, it does a lot of things. I mean, it does provide women with a lot more opportunity on the economic front. It does decrease their dependency on their mate in relationship to economic security. And educating women, countries that are willing to educate women, that's the best predictor of their future economic success. So if you look at developing countries and you want to find out what about a developing country is most likely to predict the fact that they will continue to thrive economically, it's their attitude towards the education of women. And a couple more things. Women's educational status predicts their children's educational status, but men's educational status doesn't. So that's also an important multi-generational effect. I released a video. I was going to conclude that other story. I released a video, or someone released a clip of me talking about some of the things we just talked about. And it went out on YouTube Shorts, and it's got like 5 million views in a month or something like that. And the comment section is unbelievably vitriolic. Every single comment is vitriolic, and it's all from women. It's like, who is this old white bastard telling us what we should do with our bodies? And I wasn't being judgmental. I was just saying exactly what I said to you, which is, well, I've watched women over the entire course of my life with, I would say, an affectionate eye. I love my sister. I love my wife. I have a daughter. I love my mother. I'm pretty happy about women, all things considered. I don't have an axe to grind in relationship to how they should conduct their lives. I don't even know how they should conduct their lives. I've watched what happens. And I've also watched what happens to women who hit 29 or 30 and then can't conceive. And that is not fate I would wish on anyone. It's awful. And 30% of couples fall into that. 30% of couples have difficulty conceiving. It's a lot. And the probability that you'll have difficulty conceiving increases with age. And so, c'est la vie. But it's very interesting to me to see how vitriolic those comments have been and how uniform that is, because usually on my YouTube channel in particular, 95% of the comments are positive, and this is completely the opposite of that. So you brought this up at the beginning. You said 50% of women now at 30?
50.1 are childless by 30.
Yeah, well, that's not good. That's a sign of something profoundly wrong with the entire culture at an extremely deep level.
I don't think that women need to take it as us trying to tell women what they should or shouldn't do, but I think that it would be very fair to say that you need to be an incredibly unique woman to make it to 50 without a family and look back and think, yeah, I did this right.
So that was a crucial and detailed look at what we're dealing with in the culture and just what we're seeing in the collapse of the demographic numbers, showing that women are just not having children anymore and that the population is imploding because of that. And just to kind of contrast this whole point of view, there's really another short little clip we'll add in the back of this, and we'll just put right over top of this discussion that has an interesting perspective from women's point of view on how this really plays out and this whole conundrum, the difficulty, the dilemma that women have who think that they are being liberated and who fail to launch, right? To fail to have a real opportunity for spiritual development and the kind of transcendental evolution and the metaphysical blooming that takes place when you have children, when you just hold your own child in your arms and you kind of feel the transference of your soul and your being, and you watch your children grow up and go into the future and have wonderful experiences and lives, have that kind of fulfillment. When you lack that, it's kind of like a soul death that is really sad and tragic. And so let's hear more about this perspective, or this whole issue, with some other individuals discussing it. And this will be a return to Chris Williamson and his having a quick chat with Brett Cooper and talking about the reality many women discover in their 30s if they miss the ship.
You heard Kelsey Ballerini's new song?
No, what's that? Who's
Okay, so Kelsey Ballerini, she had her EP, Roll Up the Welcome Mat, country singer. She's from Tennessee. She went through a divorce in 2022. I believe her husband was Morgan Evans. They got married young. They had a very, very public breakup, and she wrote an EP about it that basically exploded her career. And she was always like a relatively okay, well-known country singer. Like, I listened to her growing up, but she was nothing huge. This took her mainstream. She wrote an incredibly raw EP about her divorce. And in one song, I think it was Blind Spot, something like that, she talks about one of the reasons for their divorce was that he was ready to settle down and have kids. He's 7 years older than her, and she wasn't. And she wanted to focus on her career. And he had had a bit more of a successful career at the beginning of their marriage. She was, sort of catching up. She was not ready for that. And they publicly talked about this. She gave interviews. She actually went on Call Her Daddy. And she said the children conversation was it. And they apparently went out to dinner. And she told her then husband, my 30th birthday present to myself and us is going to be, I'm going to freeze my eggs. Because I know I'm not ready, but I know you want to have kids, and I'm going to freeze my eggs. And her husband was like, absolutely not. Like, I want to have children now. I am ready to settle down. So they split up.
So she was 30, he was 37.
I believe so, yes. Right. She was 29, about to turn 30 when they got divorced. And it also seems like maybe they weren't super compatible. There were other things there, but that was the crux. So now she's had this incredible success. It has been the spoiled ride. She's dating the guy from Outer Banks. They had this, fairy tale love story. She's writing all these songs about him. She's winning all of these awards. She's very much in, she's just, exploded out of Nashville country, and now she is extremely mainstream. She released a surprise single 5 days ago called I Sit in Parks. And the entire story there is that she goes, what the song says, she goes and she sits in parks and she watches families have picnics and play with their kids, swinging on swings, and she's sitting there hitting her vape and saying, she literally talks about that, and saying, I want that, and is it too late?
How old is she now?
33.
Wow. Is she still with the guy? The new guy?
Outer Banks guy?
Yeah.
They broke up, but then they got back together. It was this whole thing. They were spotted in...
Tumultuous bullshit. It's not the same as being in a relationship with a guy that you were going to get married to.
They were, but they were for 2.5 years, and then they had a bit of a breakup. Now it seems like they might be back together. But she released the song, and she's saying, I sit in parks, and I wonder if this mom wants my freedom like I want to be a mother. And I wonder if it's too late. And she says, Rolling Stone says that I'm on the right path, but I wonder if I've, sacrificed my future. And then at the end, she's kind of like, oh, well, this is the life that I've created for myself. And she goes, my friend is due in March. My album's due in April. So I'll go refill my Lexapro and I'll get back to work. And it is so incredibly raw. But it's the timeline of that she was divorced only 3 years ago because she wasn't ready to have kids. She had this mountain of success, everything that she wanted. And now she's sitting here and going, shit. Did I wait too long? And I'm guessing that she wrote this when she and the boyfriend were on a break, whatever it was. But the women who are relating to that, if you look on social media, the success of the song, the comments are heartbreaking. It's all these women going, I don't know if I made the right decision. I thought I did all the right things. I focus on my career. I've emphasized, that. I haven't found
independence, financial security.
Yeah.
Look, it's kind of trite to say it because I've talked about it so much, so have you. But I do think we're getting into a slight new era now, which is asking the question, is there a way to shortcut the unteachable lesson of financial independence will not give you the sense of belonging that you want as a young woman? And I understand that it feels very safe and secure rather than having yourself be a financial prisoner of some guy.
Yeah.
I mean, women out earn men up to the age of like 30 or 31 still at the moment by a couple of grand a year. So I think that's really an issue, at least to that point.
That's something they're concocting up in their minds.
To a degree, yeah. Or that you wouldn't be able to go back to work, you wouldn't be able to go back to your career. I think that paternity problem, maternity leave, I get it. All of those issues. But asking yourself the question, like, is it actually worth it to avoid the very thing that most women have been working towards? Like, what's the financial independence for? Just to, like, Chelsea Handler your way through the rest of life? I don't think that that's the case. And
it's an FU to men.
Yeah. I'm going to...
it's saying, I don't need you.
Well, it's assuring your failure privately to be able to stick the middle finger up at men publicly. I don't need you. I will be a miserable flag bearer for this movement. But it's a really unpopular perspective to take. So the fact that the comments was sort of with other women who had done the same thing, but it's kind of the same as being body positive. It's like, it's toxic empathy.
Yes.
The optics of this argument are much more sexy than the reality of it, right? The optics of the argument are, you don't need a man. You are enough as you are already. You don't need to wait to be chosen by him. In fact, you don't need to be chosen at all. You and your friends and your girlies and your vibrator are enough to get you through the next however many decades of your life. And maybe he'll come along, but if he doesn't, you don't need to worry. And like, that is a really supportive and caring message if you take it without the sort of militant anti-men perspective on it, which is, you are enough as you are. And wouldn't that be a wonderful place to get into a relationship from as opposed to one from desperation?
So that you're sharing it with somebody.
Yeah, and also that you don't make the sort of decision out of desperation. Like, I'm going to pick this person because I want a person, not because I want that person.
Yeah.
Understood. That doesn't tend to be the way that it's delivered. I saw this, I went onto the child-free subreddit.
That's a dark place.
When Taylor Swift got engaged.
Meltdown.
They were not happy. And there was I was like real impressed with most of the balance on there. There was some insane ones. One of the most insane ones was basically like, I can't believe that she would get into a relationship with that monster, that animal, like referring, because it made me the way that he presents or what they think about his politics or whatever it might be. But yeah, people, in the same way as Adele's weight loss was a threat to the body positivity community, Taylor Swift's engagement was a threat to the child-free community.
Oh, it absolutely was. And the fact that now all these things are coming out saying, oh, they're going to get married relatively quickly. Allegedly, they want to start a family. That's really important. But I also think, and this is something that was so funny to me, is I talked about this, obviously, and I was, reading those same comments and the same posts, and they were outlandish and absurd. But if you look at Taylor Swift's discography, you look at her music, everything she's written, she always wanted...
She's a romantic.
She is. Like, that's the thing. And they were like, she's betrayed us. I'm like, I don't think she has. People mocked her for years because she went from boyfriend to boyfriend, but she didn't have any flings. Like, she was wholeheartedly in love with these guys, writing these songs. I'm going to marry you. I'd marry you with paper rings. I'm still thinking about you all these years later. That's what she wants. It's like, have you not actually been listening to her music? Have you just liked the fact that I think that's what it comes down to, is have you liked the fact that she has been so unlucky in love, and it has made you feel better about your situation, and that has validated your choice? Yeah. And now you have to face the music, literally, that she's happy and she's finally gotten what she wants. And I think another thing that weaves into this conversation about women is something that I do think that has been harmful coming from more of the right wing, is this, like, women hit a wall conversation. Obviously, there is a biological clock that you have to consider, but saying that a woman at 30 years old has peaked, has no future, no prospects, can never have any children anymore, I think that's such a harmful thing to tell young women, especially if you have a woman who's come up in the era of, the child-free type folks, of the Alex Coopers, who then is having her mind change and is looking for something, and what she's hearing from so many prominent male voices, I think they're less prominent now, is that you're too old, you've hit a wall, you're ugly, nobody will ever want you, you've screwed up your entire life. It's like, that's not the way to address that. And I think Taylor Swift was kind of a middle finger to that movement as well, because she's 33 years old.
One of the most eligible bachelors in America.
Yeah. And she's happy, and it worked. And I look at, Kelsey Ballerini, and I understand, at 33 years old, she's going, this is, I don't have much time left, but in 10 years, obviously don't waste those. But it's not like you're 50. I
think you should be cautious about the 10 years thing.
Yeah.
I
guess with
fertility treatments are great, but even they're not magic. And
I think it comes from personal. My mom had me at 42.
Yes.
So it's like
my mom had me relatively late as well.
Yeah.
But still,
fertility is on a decline.
Correct.
Yeah.
I get the sense that, and this is my least impressive strategy to fix the birth rate. I think that Taylor Swift will have a non-zero impact on the West's birth rate.
Okay.
I think when she has, if she has kids, I think that causes a cascade of sufficient size that there will be a noticeable bump if you were to look at the sort of demographics of that. I think the sort of 2, 3, 4 years after that, I think you are going to see a tick in that.
Well, and culture is shifting. I mean, you have, her, you have Kelsey Ballerini, Millie Bobby Brown got married very young to Jake Bon Jovi, and they just adopted a baby less than a year after getting married. And she's very open about, this is everything she's ever wanted. She's incredibly happy. She's protecting this baby girl's privacy. Timothée Chalamet very recently was saying that he feels, he feels like it's, I'm trying to remember the exact word he used, but basically he was saying that it is very depressing when people talk about not wanting children, and he's surrounded by a lot of people who do have children and are starting families, and he thinks that's really wonderful. And he was essentially saying, I think it's a marker of a very sad society if we are now saying that it's empowering to state that you're not going to have children and that you don't care. So we're seeing these shifts, and I think that's one thing where I think conservatives are better at this now, but where they've said, ignore pop culture, we're not going to be involved in that. It's like, no, these people do influence culture. They influence society. They influence the attitudes, especially of young women who are far more emotional and who lean on these figures. That's just an objective fact. Who are more emotionally swayed. Those are important changes. And I think those are worth celebrating and looking into. So I've had some people, when I've done episodes about that or talked about it, they say, Brett, it doesn't matter. I'm like, no, it does matter.
So that was an interesting take from Miss Brett Cooper there, and that was a different kind of analysis about the whole issue, but it's still the same underlying dilemma that we are dealing with in empowering women. We want them to be smart and strong and have a career, but also not miss out on their incredible calling and their destiny in having children. And of course, you probably will hear some background noises in this particular episode. We're doing all this podcast work here on a weekend, and we have the wife and the dog and the other, sounds of household joy taking place in the background. And of course, they just do not care if we're podcasting over here. They just don't have any respect, and they will go ahead and just make as much noise as they please to make. And I'm doing my best to kind of segment the two interactions and the two events here so that I can do some weekend downtime with the family and also do some podcasting. So if you hear a little background noise, don't be alarmed. Everything is fine. We're just experiencing some weekend break time off here. So let's carry on. Let's get back on point here. Let's get back on to our focus about our elite journalists and our elite journalism here in America, and discuss more about Savanah Hernandez. All right. So now we got to turn around and do our Savanah Hernandez audio takes and do some clips here to show you kind of the gist of her work and what she has been accomplishing. And she's been heavily censored and blacklisted and shadow banned in various ways. And so here we're going to listen to Drew Hernandez, who is a Frontlines commentator and reporter that works with TPUSA, and we'll just give you a good feel for Savanah Hernandez's work here in this particular interview. Just going to be a couple of minutes of her chatting with Drew, and we will take a listen.
What's happening now? Third account gone. Why?
So, Drew, every single time I get censored and silenced, it just emboldens me even more to fight harder. Now, the left wants me to be discouraged, they want me to stop reporting, and they want me to give up. But guess what? Every single time they ban me, I say, okay, we're going to make 5 more Twitter accounts, and I'm going to go even harder. Congratulations, you pissed me off. So I made a third Twitter account, and I genuinely was just going to use that one to, gather news, because I do my own podcast still, and I was like, let me just use it for news. But then again, I realized that the footage that I was capturing was national news and it was going to be big. So I started putting it out because I said, you know what? If I have to sacrifice one more Twitter account, but I'm able to elevate the voice of my fellow American, then it will have been worth it. So last week, I had 3 clips that went very, very viral, got about 4 million views in total. Actually, just on my Twitter platform, they were also used on many national news networks. And again, I say that because this isn't me with some random 100 following on Twitter, like, oh, you know, I had a bad political take and I got deleted. This is national news that you need to be listening to, that Americans are interested in and they want to hear. That's what's getting deleted. So, number one, I went to the inner cities. This was my second installment of this. The first gas station video was on the last Twitter account, so that got deleted. This was the second installment. Joe Biden came out and said that we have the strongest, fastest economic recovery of any country, that, you know, we're currently matched to China with our economy, that Americans are feeling more financially comfortable than they ever have. So I went to the inner cities and I asked Black Americans, is this true? And every single one of them said, no, it's a lie, and we want Donald Trump back. So I completely obliterated the mainstream media narrative. That went viral with about 1 million views. And then we go to DC Pride. I captured a video of a transgender person twerking in front of children naked, breasts exposed, twerking on a cop, which I would view as sexual harassment of this police officer. These kids come Irish dancing after this person is done twerking in front of them. It was one of the most horrific things I've ever seen. That one made almost every single right-wing network. I'm sure you guys have already seen the clip. And then the third clip that went viral, I simply went to Pride and I asked the members of Pride, because again, Drew, I give a platform to everybody, whether I agree with them or not. Yes. So I went to Pride and I said, you know what? The right wing is really coming after you guys. They're calling you guys groomers. They're saying that you're confused and you don't even believe or know what you're saying. So let me go and see if that's true. So I simply went to Pride DC and I said, what do you identify as? Now, this clip has since been taken down off of Instagram for hate speech because I simply went and said, what do you identify as? And then people said, I don't know, or I identify as it, or they, or them, or identify as a cat. So these are the people at Pride. That got deleted off Instagram, and then it went super viral on Twitter because these poor young girls, it was 2 teenagers, they were saying, you know, I thought that I was pansexual, queer, bisexual, but now I'm a demisexual, but I don't even know. They said every single color of the rainbow LGBTQ flag, that's what they identified as. And they said it was a slippery slope. I started off with one thing and now I'm over here, and now I'm a they, them, he, her, pangender, queer. It went super viral because, again, it just showed the indoctrination of the next generation. So those 3 clips amassed millions of views last week, broke national news, and as soon as that happened, I said, you know what, the Twitter account's going down, it's too big. And then I woke up on Monday morning after a long week of reporting, Tuesday, the entire account was gone. And so then I doubled down and I said, I'm putting out a 2-minute statement on Twitter and I'm running a campaign. I want to get Elon Musk's attention. I want to get Joe Rogan's attention because they need to hear this. This is a unique case. This isn't me just getting banned and being sad about my social media and, you know, a couple of pictures of me and my family getting deleted. This is national news that the American people want to hear and want to watch, and it is getting deleted. So I ran a Twitter campaign.
And that's why it has millions of views.
Exactly. So I ran a Twitter campaign, and then that one in itself got 1.5 million because my friends reposted the deleted videos, and guess what? They got 1 million more views because, again, the people want to see what's actually going on in the streets of America, and that is why Twitter silences me. There's a Daily Beast reporter that lives in Dallas. His name is Stephen Monticelli. He's been personally assigned to target my Instagram account. He's made sure to target me and get all of my work deleted, all of my hard work. But again, it's not going to deter me. It's not going to stop me because I'm so passionate about this, Drew. But you know what? We are continuously lied to by our government every single day, by our politicians and by our media, and I'm done with it. And I will fight every single day until I die to make sure that the American people have their voices heard, because the mainstream media is doing a huge disservice to us. Our politicians are doing a huge disservice to us. President Joe Biden is doing a huge disservice to us by lying to us, bold-faced every single day, and I won't stand for it. So the left wing can come and target me all day long. I don't give a damn. I will never stop, and I will never be silenced. I will never let my fellow Americans be quieted either.
All right, so this is just another great example of Savanah Hernandez and her firebrand approach to citizen journalism, and really just real journalism, right? Because the current mainstream media is a totally disgusting group of sycophants and leftist bootlickers and Marxist fiends, right? And you can't trust them for any kind of details of what's really going on in the world. CNN is a good example. It's just communist, left-wing pablum. And so we have to turn to citizen journalists for actual real information and real hard-hitting journalistic value to hear an accurate and cogent and sane perspective of what's really going on in the world. And when she goes out into these really kind of dangerous crowds and gets these hot takes and gets this information and gets so much insight into how mentally ill and brainwashed and psychologically damaged the left is in this country, they hate her, right? They really hate her. She's a perfect example of what Charlie Kirk has inspired in this country and was an example of, going back to like Andrew Breitbart and this idea that we can inform ourselves in this country, right? We don't need some kind of like massive monolithic CIA Operation Mockingbird media programming to brainwash us every single day in every single way, right? We can learn for ourselves. We can go out there with these devices and inform ourselves and bypass the entitlement and the arrogant, condescending propaganda that these leftist media apparatchiks are pumping down our throats every day. And so that's why we're going to turn to individuals like Savanah Hernandez. Well, we can create our own news anchors and our own influencers, our own celebrities, our own people that we're going to look up to and model our thinking and our understanding about the shape and texture of this country and what is going on and how dangerous this political atmosphere is. And so here, let's get back to our podcast and let's discuss more about this incredible work. Hey guys, it's just another quick break here. We got to take a minute out to just remind you of our incredible sponsor, wendyslimited.com. Wendy's Boutique Limited has the most incredible selection of boutique couture and just the hottest catalog selection of designer fashion trends. And you're going to get a good look at Wendy's personal closet, and you're going to be able to get a chance to see what she's been into and what she is recommending as the hottest new designer trends out there. And of course, she gets the best deals, and she's on top of like everything that's coming out that is just the most incredible, beautiful women's apparel and jewelry and shoes and just everything that makes beautiful women so incredibly, vividly beautiful. And we just want to recommend Wendy's Boutique Limited. Wendy'sLimited.com has just been such an incredible partner for us. We need you guys to go over there and check it out. Wendy'sLimited.com is going to give you a good deal. I think right now, for the rest of the month, if you go over there and do an order with her, you're going to get 10% off. You're going to get 10% off your first order if you go over there and do an order for the rest of the month. So just go ahead and let them know in the notes there, and send them a note, an email that you heard about Wendy'sLimited.com at Looking Glass Forum. And Looking Glass Forum is going to get you an incredible discount. So I hope you will support us and support our incredible sponsor, Wendy'sLimited.com. Wendy's Limited Selection, guys. You got to check it out. So here we'll just jump over here to some more of these incredible clips. Savanah Hernandez has been in the middle of all these different kind of cultural media extravaganzas that we see playing out in the social media landscape. And you can see here that she really gets in. She's the perfect kind of demographic to get in close and personal to these individuals who, for the most part, are going to not have any idea who she is. And she is a woman, according to the left, a woman of color, which is really not, it's an idiotic and nonsensical and meaningless descriptive that doesn't have any value in the larger scheme of things and reality. But since she is an individual who seems to be an ally and seems to be able to be perceived as an individual who is just an average, everyday supporter or visitor or protester in the situation, she can really get some of the most fascinating candor and real live commentary with people's defenses down, with their guard lowered. without a sense of the kind of consequence of the fact that 4 million people are going to click on the link and hear what they're saying, right? It's almost like a casual exchange between people standing at the grocery market checkout line, right? The individuals are not defensive, right? Their demeanor is that they don't have a sense of proportionality as far as to what they're saying. They're just going to let their true feelings fly without any inhibitions, without checking their comments. And this is how we're going to get a really good insight, a true perspective from an elite journalist. And she's not there being provocative or aggressive. She's just casually getting their point of view. So here, let's jump over to these ridiculous Carmelo Anthony protests, where we get some of the most deranged and heartless and kind of demonic attitudes that are prevailing here among people who just don't give a single damn that they're defending a murderer, and they're defending murder, and they're defending a culture of criminality and prevailing injustice. These are the same individuals who will demand that they get reparations because 200 years ago some ancestor of theirs may or may not have been a slave, but they have no qualms about supporting the wholesale murder of other individuals that just don't have the same skin pigments, right? You don't have the same complexion in your epidermis, so you're worthy of death. Because my people in my community, we're going to stick up for our own, right? And so these are the kind of detailed perspectives that we're not going to get from a regular journalist out there with a camera crew with a big fuzzy microphone that says Channel 5, right? You're going to get a totally different attitude, a totally different concealment and careful guarding of one's point of view and one's comments. And when it's very casual and unintrusive, like how we have here with elite journalist Hernandez here, we're going to get a really good hot take. We're going to get a really true feeling, and we're going to get a real accurate temperature gauge of the kind of discrimination, bias, and hatred that resides in some of these communities here. And so this is profound. Savanah Hernandez got some of the most striking and jaw-dropping video footage from these horrendous and awful people who are murder supporters, who are supporting a murder ape, the most animalistic and brutal and heinous behavior that's just unacceptable everywhere. And these same people would be just wailing and howling to the sky and screaming about injustice if something would have happened to their child. If Carmelo Anthony would have stabbed their children through the heart, they would have been beating their chests. But since they have no empathy and there's a soulless void of treachery and malice, they don't care if someone else's son gets killed right in front of his own twin brother, ripping out the heart and the soul out of this family, and then pursuing them around the parking lot and intimidating them and calling for death threats against the other twin brother, right? These people are sick. And we wouldn't have any idea that this kind of disgusting racial injustice and racism against Americans was existing without this kind of elite journalism. So let's take a listen.
If evidence does come out that Carmelo was not in fact fighting for his life when he stabbed and killed Austin Metcalf, do you think that the black community will accept that?
If evidence shows that he did not, no, we're going to stand by ours regardless. They stand by theirs. We're going to stand by ours regardless. I'm a mother first. I'm a black mother. Let me put that on there. I'm an African-American mother. So I have to put away my color first and step into the motherhood. Nobody wants to see their child slain. So I do want to send prayers to Austin Metcalf, their family. But at the end of the day, I got to think like, okay, what did you do to him or whatever to cause this to happen, the reaction? We got to start taking accountability for our kids. Because then again, if my kid, that's why I said catch-22, if my kid was Carmelo and I feel like his back was up against the wall, well, I'm going to tell you straight up, better mine than yours. Better mine than yours. So either way it go, everybody loses. A black boy allegedly murdered, and I say allegedly, heavy on the allegedly murdered somebody. You see what I'm saying? So yeah, this is about race. Because if the shoe was on the other foot, they wouldn't give a damn.
Who wouldn't give a damn?
The let me say this. Let's say the community.
So like if Carmelo Anthony was the one stabbed and killed by Austin Metcalf,
they wouldn't give a damn.
I come out here every Thursday and we pray for people going to court because we know this is the final frontier of racism and it's legalized here.
it was announced yesterday that there's no black jurors that were chosen. What are your thoughts on that?
That's why we need God. That's why we need God, and that's why he's going to show who's in control.
And would you be open to giving us your personal insights into the Carmelo Anthony trial and what your thoughts are on it?
I just want justice done. You know, we know nobody go to a track meet to murder anybody. Okay, come on. That's an accident, self-defense. That's what it was. I'm not saying the kid should get off free, but first-degree murder? Come on. Basically, he's facing the wrong charge for the crime that was committed.
Do you think Carmelo is innocent? Do you feel like it's been an unfair response to what happened to Carmelo Anthony?
I feel that the justice system always over-respond when it comes to us. So definitely, I mean, you look at the charge. It was self-defense. He was wrestling with two guys. I don't know what the parameters of it, but it was two people. So, you know, 2 against 1, that's self-defense.
So there you have it, guys. There's the inside perspective on what is going on with America. You can see that this is just pure tribalization. This is the Vulcanization of America. And this is just the result of so much intellectual poverty and cultural degeneracy within our classrooms and our schools. And these individuals have been for so long grifting on this idea of guilting the American people with this idea of racism, not looking at yourself as an American, but as some kind of like racial oddity that is a victim class, and not taking responsibility for your actions and trying to defend this murder of a boy. You know, it's just totally sick. It's totally insane. And this guy went there with this knife in his bag and took it out and had it ready, you know, just to cause trouble in another team's tent. And anyone who can't look at that on a level perspective is just being drawn into this kind of global race war agenda. We talk about it all the time. And this is the process of breaking down the American culture and the civil society into this race hustle, into this deterioration of the national community to drive people into this hatred, into this civil strife, so that people will be motivated and urged towards xenophobia and hatred of the other and the otherization of those who don't belong directly to your ethnic community. And the criminal culture in these inner city and degenerate black communities is so sick, right? It's really the rap culture. They've been exposed to so much of this perverse ideology and this immoral and deviant propaganda, so that they think that they're justified in one way or another, with varying degrees of excuses and justifications for the harm and the murder they commit all over America, and robbing, looting, raping, and murdering other people, right? There's just this sense of self-justification for wrongs done in the past or whatever. And all these convenient allowances and political excuses are provided to these communities by the left in this country, who are stoking the flames of this generational degeneracy and collapse of this community, so that they will not look in the mirror. They will not see that their own communities and their own families are being subsumed into this chaotic demoralization. They're far from what their ancestors used to be, and being good, righteous, God-fearing, upstanding people. But that's not what you see now. That's not what you see in these churches. Of course, if you go look on social media, there's plenty of individuals out there. There's plenty of people who are coming from an African-American background, an ethnic legacy, who are condemning this, who can rightly see that this kid was murdered by another kid. It was wrong. And the injection of this racialism into it is totally heinous and sick. And it's just perverse for anyone to stick up for a murderer just based on skin complexion. It's totally disgusting. These people they're ridiculous. And you'll see how this plays out over time as the years come in the future, in 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, when we look back on this, it'll be on its face really what it is, which is some disgusting and reprobate and pathetic people who are making pathetic justifications for a murder because they're a bunch of racists, right? That's what you have. You have the inability of these people to self-reflect, to really analyze their own behavior. I think that's what you've had in America for quite some time. You have people who are coming from a European cultural background, who have a very light complexion, who are just terrified of being racist. They're bending over backwards. They're watching what they say. They won't say certain N-words. They won't do anything that could be perceived as a racial slight. And then meanwhile, these people are committing violent crimes and murdering quote unquote white people with impunity, with this mentally ill excuse making in the background, justifying it because of the patchwork of laughable and ridiculous excuses. They were going to back theirs, so we're going to back ours. right? That's what kind of level of low IQ and despicable imbecility that you have in this country that is going to be the engine of crime, that this particular community could have 3% of males at a certain age group between 18 and 40 or whatever, 3% of the American population committing, 50 or 60% of the murders in this country. Is just so disgusting. It's so incredibly heinous and vile that it's like shocking. It's really shocking to the conscience for anybody who actually knows how to count numbers. And these individuals, they're going to just keep at it, right? They're not going to turn and try to like look in the mirror and try to handle the outbreak of violent crime that's coming from their community. They're just going to have all these excuses and justifications, all these chanting and parading for justice for a murderer, right? And then chasing down the family of the murdered. And this is just starting out, guys. This whole process of inducing racial violence from this particular community is just starting out. You'll see in the years to come, and as we kind of progress here, as we move forward, you're going to see more and more of this building of like these calls for outrage over Trayvon Martin and O.J. Simpson and Carmelo Anthony, right? All these watermelon felons. It's going to become an unmanageable, unrestrainable conflagration of violence that's going to hit until people have to fight in the streets, right? And that's the agenda here. That's what we've been talking about in the past episodes. The agenda is to weaponize the American people against itself and to bring about this cultural destruction. It can't be ignored, right? You can't just pass it by because it's going to start breaking into your windows in your own home and finding you, even out in the country, even out far away from all the degeneracy in the city, right? It's going to become something that's going to be an insurmountable issue that we're going to have to face here as Americans here shortly. And the consequences and the fallout from this is going to be totally catastrophic, because I think these particular individuals, like we were talking about in other episodes, are being targeted for total destruction. And that's what you get as a consequence when you plant the seeds of rebellion and foment a bestial and barbaric, savage population of murder apes who are just out there trying to victimize other Americans who are trying their best to stay out of the way. So that was a really interesting take here by Savanah Hernandez, right? She has a really good demeanor. She's a natural journalist, and she's able to get a really good look at what's going on in the undercurrent of these kind of American subcultures. So just as we close out this particular discussion surrounding the Carmelo Anthony murder trial, we can find that Savanah Hernandez has an entire panoply of hot takes that she got from this particular crowd of quote-unquote protesters who are protesting for the release of the murderer, as they carry on in the most kind of mind-numbing and an irrational show of preposterous social animosity and support of violence that I can remember, right? And trying to like bracket this by some kind of civil rights stance is totally sickening. It's pukish. And just to kind of wrap it up, let's catch one of the other incredible remarks that has become a meme, right? This is what the elite journalism of Savanah Hernandez has accomplished, and just turning these people into meme trolls is astonishing.
What do you want us to do? What do you want us to do at this point? What? I'm lost for words. I don't know what to do. I got 5 boys. I don't know what. I ain't got nothing to tell them no more. You can't walk away no more.
Rest in peace, Trayvon Martin.
So it's a shocking level of degeneracy and simple-minded, dim-witted insanity. The behavior is just totally ludicrous. It's shocking, the absurdity of these morons. And what you would tell your 5 sons is you're not allowed to stab people, even if they try to wrestle you, or if they try to shove you out of a tent, or even if they try to have a disagreement or have a power struggle, or if you start to feel insecure or defensive or put upon any kind of way, you're not allowed to stab people in the heart and murder them, right? And if you do, even if it's just a slip of your behavior, and I mean, what kind of shrunken brain morons and animalistic savagery can make a mistake to whip out a knife and stab somebody in the chest and be like, oh, my mistake, my bad, I think I must have overreacted. You know, this is what we're talking about, guys. This is completely insane. And it doesn't fit with the modern era of contemporary 2026 human behavior, right? We're pretty evolved at this point. We're pretty advanced. We're able to put human beings into orbit and to try to mount an effort to explore the solar system. And we're past this period where we're allowed to behave and justify behaving like animals in a zoo, right? It's totally insane. And this has become a total meme. I mean, all the politicians, every single person in the world has responded to this feeble-minded invalid of a woman with this clownish, moronic behavior. We can't just walk away no mo. Well, yeah, you can. That's what all the other people do. When individuals like you come into the store and start flipping over the food and smashing jars on the shelf and attacking people, or trying to rip off the store and run out the shopping mart with a cart full of goods that you're just not going to pay for, or individuals that belong to your community are running around the neighborhoods flashing guns at people and murdering people left and right. We're just all walking away, right? The entire country, the entire nation is doing its best to just leave you, to give you a wide berth, to white flight away from you guys, because you're dangerous psychos. And at some point, the duty of Americans to retreat from your violence and your ludicrous and your brain-dead stupidity and violence is going to be at its limit. At some point, the nation is going to react to this entire community and no longer accept these outrageous and ignorant excuses for animal behavior. It's not acceptable. It's unacceptable on every level. And the fatigue now is getting to a magnitude of intensity which is just overpouring, right? It's outrageous. I remember just discussing these issues a long time ago with Pastor Phelps, and it just seemed like his attitude in this regard was maybe overblown, maybe not justified. And as we look into the future here, as we go down this path directionally towards this increase of scumbag behavior, you can see that the American people are among other vectors of oppression and strife that affect the American people in various ways, including all the different government policies and outrageous tax policies and monetary inflation that just crushes the American family. We have these unwavering villains saturating every community with this, oh shucks, who done it? I didn't do nothing. Dirtbags attacking police, raising the crime rate everywhere they go, driven by the intensity of psychopathy and derangement in the music culture and in Hollywood, amping up these, I've been a poor victim of racism that wasn't fair to me. This clownish creeps making every excuse in the world and trying to sell us on this rationalization as to why they're going to continuously victimize our neighborhoods and our families with this unending avalanche of violence, right? It's insane. It's unacceptable, as we've been saying. So anyway, we'll just leave off from that among the many outrages that we have to deal with as the American people and carry on. Let's look at a little bit more of Savanah Hernandez's work that's familiar to us here.
How old is the United States as a country?
Oh, as itself? Like 1,000,000 years old?
What's up, guys? This is Savanah Hernandez in Times Square. Now, I want to go check in on the American education system, so we're going to go do a little pop quiz today. Let's go. How many years old is the United States of America?
I mean, it's gotta be past
As a country.
587 years. 106.
No, not 52. It has to be
70 something.
It can't be 70. 90?
No. That was horrible.
93?
Think about it. When was the United States founded?
That's a hard question. 18. Okay. I don't know. 1890. Is it 18 or no? I have no idea.
Really? 368 years. 452.
Is it a billion years old?
The origin of the universe is the origin of everything.
Like a million years old? 1492.
1492. Columbus got us all a day off ski.
2000 BC. Okay.
The United States as a country. How old is the United States as a country?
Oh, as itself? 800 years, something like that, yeah.
But they'll never take our freedom.
What year were we founded in?
I don't know, like 500 years or somewhere.
So what year were we founded?
1776. I say like probably 227 years old.
You've been the closest today. Yeah, we're a little bit under 250. What year were we founded in?
1927.
So, like 1512.
What did the Declaration of Independence do?
Save slaves from being enslaved.
No. It got us away from the UK. It got us from England, right?
Oh yeah, that's when we got independence from England. I'm just stuck on Juneteenth right now.
Okay, what did the Declaration of Independence do?
Declare us independence.
Yeah, an independent or free will country.
Of who?
Oh, wait, no. It was for the slaves, right?
The colonies, right?
Oh, yeah. We became a country instead of 13 colonies.
But who did we declare independence from?
British? Britain?
Yeah, Britain or Spain?
They freed us, right?
From what?
Slavery. Not slavery. We still in slavery, but I forgot. I ain't gonna lie.
Right, the Declaration. It gave us independence, freedom.
Yeah, they gave us freedom and our independence and having rights to vote and
Yeah. Who did it give us Declaration of Independence from?
Jefferson.
Thomas Jefferson, I don't know.
Thomas Jefferson.
It gave us independence from Thomas Jefferson. Final answer?
He's not the only one though.
No,
Wait, wasn't it Abraham? Because he signed the Declaration of something. I can't remember what.
So the Declaration of Independence was back in 1776 when we declared independence from the British.
Oh. Didn't they make like the laws of rights for the government?
So the Declaration of Independence, think about it. Think about the name. What did it do?
I declared like the freedom of the USA.
From who?
George Washington, am I wrong?
From the British, girl.
Isn't he from George Washington, England?
So George Washington is who helped us declare independence from the British.
Oh.
Yeah, he was our first president of the United States.
Did I even pay attention in school? Hold on, I don't know, I graduated.
The Declaration of Independence declared the independence.
He's not wrong. From who?
Abraham Lincoln. Thomas Jefferson. Barack Obama.
All right, Ice Spice Jr., you got this. Is Africa a country or a continent?
That's a country.
Is Africa a country or a continent?
Continent.
Oh, boy. Continent.
That's a continent.
A continent.
Continent.
Is Africa a country or a continent?
A continent.
Good. Nobody's gotten that wrong. I'm very pleasantly surprised.
5 minutes later.
It's a continent.
Shit, oh my god. A country, isn't it?
Country.
This is crazy. It's a continent.
Can you name one country in North America outside of the United States?
Canada.
There's only one answer, really. Canada, South America.
That's South America. That's South America. That's not a country. That's a continent.
Mexico.
Huh? Yeah, that's South America.
Well, that's not in South America yet, yo.
Mexico. Mexico answer.
Mexico is correct.
Toronto? Is it Toronto?
So that's in another country.
Right.
Which country? Which country is Toronto in?
North America. No, I'm tripping. This North America right here, right?
We're in North America.
Right.
Which country are you in right now? So Toronto is a city in which country?
North America.
Canada.
Yeah, Canada.
In North America, outside the United States, Canada.
In North America, they have the entire side. I go with Canada. Chile.
No, that's South.
That's still North America.
That is South America.
That's South.
That's South America.
Go with Canada.
Okay, but there's a couple other countries in North America outside of Canada and the United States. What's south of the U.S.?
That's South America, right?
Country.
Country.
What country is south of the United States?
Brazil.
Think about it.
I said Brazil already.
No, okay,
That's the
Peru.
Colombia.
Mexico.
Oh my God, I was thinking Mexico. I didn't want to look dumb.
Oh, you mean like directly below the U.S.?
I was like, I look dumb.
Let me think about it.
Right, I didn't think. Hawaii?
A country.
She said Hawaii.
Okay, that's a country or what's the name? But Antarctica? That's a state, right? That's not a state. That's a continent.
It's a continent?
Yes.
Oh, yes, it is. Oh, my God.
What's north of the United States?
I'm not gonna lie, I was gonna say Canada, but I don't want to look dumb.
I'm about to guess. Europe?
What's south of the United States?
South America?
North America. Wouldn't it be Canada?
Mexico.
Good job.
Canada.
Canada.
What'd you say?
You gotta pick a different one.
Alaska. Is that right?
Shit, I don't know. Canada? I don't know. Oh my God. Damn, Ice Spice. I'm not sure.
Just give me a guess.
Bro, just say Mexico or something. Cuba. Cuba.
Dead ass.
Actually, she's right.
What about Alaska?
Alaska is a state.
All right, so if that doesn't terrify you, then nothing will. That is a kind of a premonition and a looking glass into the future of what is going to befall America here shortly as we go into this, what is called the fourth turning, right? Just the fourth turning refers to a key concept in the Strauss-Howe generational theory, which was popularized in the 1997 book, The Fourth Turning, An American Prophecy by historians William Strauss and Neil Howell. The theory proposes that the Anglo-American and similar Western cultures and nations follow predictable cyclical patterns roughly every 80 to 100 years, about the length of a human life, called a saeculum, Latin for the natural century or lifespan. Each cycle consists of 4 turnings or phases analogous to the seasons: spring growth, summer passion, autumn entropy, and winter the destruction and rebirth, which ultimately these 4 turnings influence society. 4 recurring generational patterns. Strauss and Howe predicted the next crisis, the fourth turning, would begin around 2005, a few years, and climax, unfurling for a few years and climaxing in the 2020s, ending around the mid-2030s. Many see the 2008 financial crisis, coupled with 9/11, as a precursor and a spark, with events like political polarization, economic strain, pandemics, geopolitical tensions, and institutional distrust as the episodic deterioration fitting the winter mood in these fourth turning, in these cycles: the American Revolution, the Civil War, the Great Depression, and now here we're in the fourth turning. And so, of course, we can just rip that documentation and that kind of breakdown from Grok just to give it a more clear enunciation, just to be really specific. And that is what the benefit of artificial intelligence can be for us. And of course, I think that people are looking at this outbreak of new technology as catastrophic because it doesn't give the market and the capitalistic entrepreneurialism and the reflexes of a human market enough time to really adjust to the explosive avalanche of changes that are going to come that threaten the white-collar job market. And without enough time to react and adjust and to integrate these technological advances within the marketplace, within our businesses, the rapidity of the changes and the market disruptions could be so catastrophic and put people out of work so rapidly with such acceleration that individuals will not have time to respond and to reacclimate themselves to different job conditions. And so there's going to be a question whether these rapid changes, of course, America has been built for technological change for over all these decades. And so it's a question as to whether we just reallocate the human resources and bridge the divide and create new markets and create new wealth, new business dynamics, new job opportunities for people who are savvy and technologically advanced enough to just find these new opportunities, or whether it will just create a situation where the bottom falls out and there are no jobs and there are no incomes to respond as a human market to the new opportunities that are being created through machine learning. And if there are no customers and nobody has an income, right, to go and purchase these new products and engage in these new market dynamics, then ultimately they'll create a collapse. And I think that's what the black pilling is. I think that's what people are worried about. So at this point, we'll just jump in here in order to kind of contextualize and draw out this whole conversation and this whole debate over AI and its effects on the American job market and the economy. We're going to go to Tim Pool, and we're going to listen to the entire clip so that we kind of get a good feel for what they're discussing. And they're going to go into like this whole discussion, and they're going to turn it over a few different ways and look at the different facets of how AI could help, how it could hurt, how it could displace so many jobs in the job market that there is no more income left for people to go out and shop, and it would just leave the American people in the throes of a stagflation, so that really the massive power and wealth that the AI systems will generate will just be structured for the elite and to create massive cyber surveillance and an algorithm prison, right? We talk about the algorithm ghetto. And so we're going to just go into this whole conversation. It's kind of a long clip, but I think it bears playing the entire piece so that we can get a feel for the whole discussion. And at the end, Tim Pool makes a point that I have long held, that these DARPA labs have been experimenting with these AI mechanics and the functionality and the effect of artificial intelligence for a long time, and they have a good idea of what was going to happen here. I think that it's not just an accident. I don't think it's just happenstance as some kind of like random outcome that this is taking place. I think it's a well-crafted and guided, engineered decline of Western civilization. So I think that this is what's going to happen. I think that the intention from the DARPA labs was towards depopulation all along. So here, let's just take a listen to this clip. This is kind of cutting into the middle of our discussion here with Savanah Hernandez, but I think it's an important topic to really cover completely. So here, let's listen to Tim Pool and his crew turn it over and discuss this whole issue and this debate.
There's one thing that before we wrap this up, or at least talking about AI, people don't see the tangible benefits, or they don't think they see the tangible benefits for like every man when it comes to like AI. Midjourney just announced that they have this new product called Midjourney Scanner, and it is essentially a replacement for CT and MRI scans. You get tank of water, and it drops this basically this piece of equipment down, and it uses ultrasonic vibrations to basically map your body. And it's going to end up being right now they're going through through trials. It says, unlike CT scans and X-rays, which rely on ionizing radiation that can damage DNA and carry a small but cumulative risk of cancer with repeated exposure, the Midjourney system uses harmless high-frequency sound waves transmitted through water, a technology with decades of proven safety in standard ultrasound, including routine use during pregnancy. The point is, if this type of innovation becomes the norm, which is what it looks like it will be doing as AI advances, this is going to be the tangible bettering of your life that people are.
But people will respond positively to that.
The political question here is about Bernie Sanders being retarded and how you shift economically in the face of not advanced medical technology, which I believe is. Is absolutely material, considering I think healthcare is around 20% of our economy. The bigger issue, of course, is white-collar jobs will evaporate overnight. Bernie Sanders and all of these people are trying to come up with plans that make no sense. Now, I wonder why it is that these elites who run these AI companies are running full steam ahead, to build a technology that we know will basically eliminate the labor market.
Well, hold on.
My assumption, just on this point, is that they know we can't just do it overnight, but we want to build it while we still have an economy and then ask the AI to solve the problem after the fact. We also know that if we do implement these technologies and it does disrupt our economy, China will take over. So it's a race to build it, but not use it.
This argument is the same argument that was made, during the Industrial Revolution with all these labor-saving devices. And in Europe, there was a change in working patterns, right? People decided that they wanted shorter working hours. They wanted more leisure time. But in the United States, people just became more productive. And you're also seeing that at a lot of AI companies. You do have AI companies that have agentic AI that they're working with.
Right, this is not the same argument.
Well, you're saying that these AIs are going to destroy jobs, but it's also...
The Industrial Revolution didn't threaten 60 to 80% of the labor market.
But the point that I'm making is there is a scenario in which instead of getting rid of jobs, they hire more people and they use this productivity to produce more.
That's not correct.
That's absolutely correct. It hasn't happened yet, but it's absolutely possible.
The function of AI at this scale is to reduce economic expenditures, not to increase it. That's why Bernie Sanders' plan makes no sense.
To increase productivity.
But we are not. It's not. It's to reduce the economic impact of those jobs. The implementation of AI is not to increase productivity. That I suppose you can make the argument that's the optimistic approach. The end result of this is not that we're going to make more art. Art is saturated. There's a finite amount of hours in the day for people to watch video content, for instance. If you blast the market with 100x of the content, everybody is left destitute.
I'm not just talking about art. I'm talking about the productivity that you're talking about, the white collar jobs that you're talking about. They can actually do more with the same amount of people.
Or what?
More of whatever the particular industry that you're talking about is. Pardon me?
Taxes. Healthcare administration. Healthcare administration is like 15% of the U.S. economy.
No, okay, but healthcare in general, you could actually see more patients. You could have a doctor instead of going through someone.
No, you can't.
Why not?
A human being has a finite amount of hours in the day.
Mm-hmm.
What we will do is replace the doctor with an AI screening bot instead. Now, a lot of people are not too happy with that idea, but yes, one way you can increase the ability for someone to see a doctor is we start doing virtual, or you do completely digital AI doctor screenings.
You can have
that's the plan.
Instead of having a doctor spending so much time looking at people's charts or whatever and stuff, looking at their X-rays and stuff, trying to figure out if something's wrong, you can actually say, okay, the doctor talks to him, feed it to an AI. The AI gives them the feedback.
What do you need the doctor for?
What?
What do you need the doctor for?
Because people want to interact with people.
So some people,
indeed,
in a private market, people who like physical human doctors will choose that, but most people will go to robo-doctor.
Well, either way, the point that I'm making is there's absolutely an argument that you're going to have productivity be increased, whereas you won't have a total.
Yeah, no, I think you're misapplying the Industrial Revolution, which was to increase manufacturing and goods.
Well, to be honest with you, this isn't
which coincided with the expansion of oil distribution.
This isn't my argument. This is something that I heard David Freeberg from.
Well, I heard the same thing, by the way. Yeah. They're all theories. We don't know.
This is propaganda. No. We do know. And these statements are propaganda by lobbyists, government actors, friends of the administration who want Trump to spend hundreds of billions of dollars in advancing AI because AI is a weapon. It is going to change things. It will be disruptive to the economy, but we want to beat China to the punch. So they come out and they say, actually, AI might increase productivity. This is not correct.
Yeah,
AI right now is largely for abstract work. It will eliminate white-collar jobs overnight.
It currently
you will not create economic output.
Productivity. It currently does increase productivity.
No, it doesn't.
It absolutely does. There are people that are doing considerably more work using AI agents than they were capable of doing 6 weeks ago.
You are going to see everybody fired in short term. They are withholding AI technology intentionally because of this. We are not talking about the Industrial Revolution where we can reduce the cost of a vehicle from the equivalent of $1 million to $10,000.
I only use the Industrial Revolution as an allegory. It's not exactly.
So let's use the current state of things. Around 20% of our economy is healthcare. A large portion of that is administration. With the implementation of the latest LLMs at full capacity, this is 15% of the economy gone literally in 3 weeks.
You can get rid of rid of a lot of the administration work, which is the majority of the cost of healthcare, and you can actually bring healthcare costs down.
Now, what do those administrators do for work to increase their productivity after their job's been eliminated? Learn to code?
I mean, look, I don't know, but you're asking me to prove a negative or
no, I'm asking you, what is the productivity increase? What is the claim?
You're going to get rid of
the people. What do these people produce?
Oh, well, they're doing paperwork. They're doing healthcare claims.
When we eliminate their job with AI and we wipe out something like 17 million jobs overnight, what do those administrative individuals do when there's no administrative
jobs? It's not going to be overnight. There's the speed of adoption that changes. Like the economy we have produced new technology after new technology after new technology, and you've seen the markets adapt and you've seen society adapt. That's historically the pattern.
Dramatically different.
It's historically the pattern, and to say that the human race is just, or the entire market is just going to collapse and say, okay, well we can't find anything to do. I really don't think that's the case.
Let me pull this story up from ZDNet. Why Anthropic suddenly pulled Fable 5 and Mythos 5 for everyone. Claude, Fable 5, and Mythos 5 are gone. The reason? A U.S. government directive. This is big news. They released it. And then Anthropic said the U.S. government, citing national security authorities, issued an export directive requiring Anthropic to disable access to the two models by any foreign national, whether inside or outside the United States, including foreign national Anthropic employees. The net effect was that Anthropic disabled Fable 5 and Mythos 5 for everyone, both inside and outside the U.S. You can see the effect of that he says, in my Claude Code session, when I launched the session. So this is presumably by the U.S. government concerns that foreign agents could get access to advanced AI technologies.
There was a jail.
But I'm going to posit something else because there is another theory. And we know that the leaders, the CEOs and executives of all of these AI companies had meetings with the U.S. government. What they talked about, we don't entirely know for sure. The presumption it was, this is an arms race. We got to beat China, things like this. However, one of the theories is that right now, for a fact, the internal LLMs that are used by these companies, if released to the public, would end white-collar work.
The point of
taxes, administration, HR, all of it eliminated overnight.
Yeah. Hold on. The point of it, like, look, when you make an LLM that is very good at reasoning and also very good at coding, you're inherently making an LLM that's good at hacking. There were safeguards. There was a jailbreak that allowed Fable to get around some of the safeguards that they put onto it.
So, okay, I got to pause because I was talking about something totally different.
You're talking about Fable 5 and why it was taken off the...
And the point I'm making is not to address security concerns, but the theory, there is another theory that the leaders of AI companies met with the government and U.S. government officials told these AI guys the current iterations of the large language models that you have, if released in its entirety right now between all companies, would put an end to white-collar work. We're talking about 40 to 50 million jobs gone in a matter of weeks. We are already seeing an attempt to make these shifts. But for some reason, the LLMs, despite as advanced as they are with image and video generation and sound generation, somehow can't carry a one. Tax jobs still require human personnel. Healthcare administration still require personnel. And again, the theory is on the parts that don't matter. And we talked about several months ago. Suno.com or CDance. Suno.com makes music. High level, Hollywood level, top label production, rivaling some of the best music. And it's arguably too good. It's noticeably good. Now, why would AI companies have no problem perfecting a creative art which actually requires skill and expertise, but not release a program that can fully automate the healthcare administration industry? Well, again, the argument is they have the technology. It is rudimentary. They surpassed this a long time ago because it's just text-based. You can already program video games. There's a company called, I think it's called Seal AI, that can make full video games of any kind. They're now marketing it out. They're telling people to buy tokens. You can tell it, I want to play Final Fantasy, and it will render you a version of it. But why then have they not released tax code AI that can just fully automate the tax industry? Again, for the same reason H&R Block and Jackson Hewitt, these other tech companies still exist, despite the fact people can just do their taxes through the IRS. It is a massive portion of the economy, and we need something that lubricates the wheels of trade in this country. So again, my argument is not that they're concerned about security, because there's a million and one other questions related to that. My argument is, right now, we know for a fact, and this is going to destroy productivity and economic output. And I'll give you one really great example. There is a finite amount of time in a day an individual can watch or listen to content. But there is an infinite, an exponential increase in the content right now due to AI. That means it used to be there were very few bands, and getting a vinyl cut was actually difficult to get made. The bands would play it live in a studio and try and record it perfectly. They'd cut them physically from that, tape and then make as many that they'd sell out. Now it's infinite digital reproduction, and that was still people making the music. And now we're at the point where kids are listening to AI music. We're older, but I talk to people like, oh, my kid just puts on the AI music and they make whatever song they want, or they change songs. We now have infinite output for creative content. For those that work in media, which has become a dominant sector in the influence economy with young people desperately trying to be influencers, we are now competing with literally near infinite content production. This is not going to increase our productivity because there's a cap on what people can absorb. It is going to cap it at flat. You will not be able to make money when the internet is 700 million videos per day AI generated and maybe 17,000 human created content. It is going to destroy our ability to do work. We will be left without work. Zachary Levi talks about it in the Hollywood industry. He says, we know for a fact that AI is about to end Hollywood. So he's like, what's the point? we are going to have billions of hours of movies, videos, podcasts, and songs per day. What's the end result? People like me can't compete with it. Why would I sit here for 4 hours recording myself talking when someone else just clicks a button and in 10 seconds has a 4-hour audio podcast extrapolating from the news? This is the destruction of productivity well beyond anything we have ever seen.
So I hear that point, Tim, and it's actually something that I've had concerns about, obviously, because of the industry I work in. But my question to you is, like, do you think that that is just ultimately a bad thing, and do you not think that we could come out on the other side of it better? Because obviously, yeah, our jobs could be screwed. This might not be an industry I'll be a part of in 5 or 10 years. That'd be sad, but it might be true. But I think a lot of the printing press, where you had the printing press come out, and I know it doesn't sound like a big deal to us, but the fact that people could actually read the Bible literally caused millions and millions of people around the world to be slaughtered. And that was like hundreds and hundreds of years problem. No, it was horrible. But today, I don't think any of us would argue that having the printing press is a bad thing.
Oh, that's not true. Mary Morgan would.
Mary Morgan would tell you it's the worst thing that ever happened.
Fair enough. Most people would agree. And so,
well, but hold on. We could be wrong.
Yeah, we could, but kind of. I mean, do we really think that our lives could be any worse right now than it was before the printing press came out?
No, I think the issue is that it doesn't matter what technology is. It doesn't matter if we have a printing press or not. Evil people do evil things. So you can take a look at the rise of the Communist Party and say, were it not for literacy, you wouldn't get the spread of communism because people wouldn't understand largely what was going on or being said to them. So they wouldn't foment revolution. They would just believe the authorities. But the reality is, regardless of the means of conveyance or technologies behind any war or whatever, good people will try to do good things, bad people will try to do bad things. The issue with this AI is not whether it's good or bad, because technology is not good or bad. The issue is it is advancing so rapidly that it will be so disruptive, it's going to lead us into some kind of economic downturn. And what I think history actually shows is everyone gets thrown into a bucket, shaken up real hard, and whoever survives the shake will go on and succeed in some capacity, but a lot of people are going to get crushed in the process.
So what I'm trying to understand from your perspective, because I think that could happen, it's one theory, is are you just kind of saying, well, crap, we're screwed? Or do you actually have a solution to this? Like, do you think government intervention is what needs to happen in order for
There is government intervention already.
But is it a good thing? I just really don't know where you're standing on this.
If the argument right now is large language models and AI companies will wipe out the white collar market overnight, with the destruction of our economy, our data centers will cease to operate. Humans need to be able to trade. The monetary system and the jobs we have are basically lubrication to make sure things are happening. The problem is with growing population and advancing technology, which was reducing workload, you end up with people who can't do anything to get access to that economy. The solution from people like Bernie Sanders is tax the rich and communism. The problem there is some people still have to work. So what happens when half the population is sitting around doing nothing and getting a free paycheck, and the other half has to do those jobs? You get revolution. This needs to be curtailed and controlled, and so the government tries to do a few things. They withhold technologies intentionally, so they prevent this mass disruption. They don't want our economy disrupted, people losing work, and then a depression allowing China to surpass us and win because they're communists and they have a command economy. They also will use propaganda to manipulate the perception of what is actually happening with AI. But you got to ask yourself why it is they're spending something like 10 to 100 times the cost for land to build data centers, why they are dumping hundreds of billions, why the government did, what was the operation called to build AI? Quantum something? Quantum Leap? Was that what it was called? Something like that. Why are they dumping so much money into this without a clear plan for monetization? This idea that we're going to use tokens and people will buy tokens. The point I was making about Bernie Sanders and him being dumb as a box of rocks is that you cannot tax a system intended for a lesser economic output to replace the lost economic output is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. To put it simply, if you fire the people at Taco Bell and replace them with robots and machines to make the tacos, you're not going to have people from Taco Bell with money to go to the grocery store to buy milk. Then you're not going to have grocery store workers to go to Taco Bell and buy tacos. Automation will, they're trying to find a solution to economics in an AI environment. Right now, I would say it's absolutely crazy that we make money complaining about things. It's unheard of 200 years ago. They'd be like, are you nuts? So certainly there may exist some kind of economics. But the problem that I'm seeing is creative work is eliminated too. So if the argument is humans will seek out interpersonal creativity when they no longer have to work, we hear this stupid argument from communists all the time. When communism succeeds, I'll play music and do art. No, you won't. Because when AI expands beyond this and there's no more need for your labor, there's going to be 700 billion paintings per day.
This is what's going on in Hollywood right now. What's happening is the large-scale AI companies that are doing work that involves creatives like screenwriting or adding to that aspect of the above-the-line work. They're hiring the James Camerons of the world. They're hiring the Martin Scorseses of the world to work as spokesmen for these AI companies to try and get people in Hollywood to be comfortable with the idea of working with AI. But the funny thing about it in that industry is Martin Scorsese is talking about how he hires, like he's using this AI program that they clearly paid him to make this advertisement for, to do all the storyboards for possibly his next project. How much easier it is to work on this project now that he can work with this AI program to convey what he wants on this program. And I'm looking back at old movies, and you've got your screenwriters on those movies. But the people that are going to benefit from this aren't the studios. The studios in Hollywood can afford to hire the storyboard artists for that. Yeah, maybe they'll streamline it down the road, but it's the independent filmmakers that end up benefiting from having access to an AI tool that can help them write storyboards. The problem is, in that industry, it is a taboo thing to be okay at working with any type of AI program because they see it as not just stealing their work, but taking their jobs. And what's going on right now in the industry, it's a union, it's got all to do with unions as well, with the industry collapsing, all of the work moving overseas, and they're talking about how they want to flip all of these non-union productions that are being made and turn them union, despite the fact that the unions are the reason why movies are en masse being made in other countries now, and AI is just another rung on that ladder where they're trying to get the studios are trying to get people comfortable with working with it, because like Disney has said, if you go to Disney right now to work as an animator, you sign in your contract, your work is being used to train AI. If you look at the trailer that came out today for Hex, the next Disney animated movie, it looks like Sora made it. Everything is framed directly in the middle. Looks like it was designed specifically to make into YouTube shorts. It's not exactly something people would see of as creative, but lots of jobs have been taken from them because they are starting to train these things on AI, but it's not the big studios that'll benefit from it at first.
Goldman Sachs wrote in 2023 that about 40 to 60% of administrative support roles are at risk. Their tasks will largely be automated, and they will eliminate a majority of these jobs. Goldman Sachs is warning about this for investors, telling them, if you're going to be putting money in companies that are largely based on administration, you're about to lose everything.
But yeah, to Phil's point earlier about productivity, like there are aspects of that industry that they can benefit. Somebody who doesn't have the budget of a big budget movie to be able to make a movie, having access to a program that can do storyboarding.
Again, but this is more to the point. How is a studio supposed to make money if they're not competing with the guy in his garage?
Yeah. Oh, I can tell you that right now. It has to do with distribution and their control of the contract.
Not with the latest rulings we've seen with the what's his face, Ethan Klein stuff. So we're getting to a point. Elon Musk and Jack Dorsey have already both publicly stated abolish IP laws. Mm-hmm. These are the moves they want to make. There will be workarounds. Plus, a lot of the long-standing intellectual property that we know is going to be moving into public domain in the future anyway. But not only that, people may like Spider-Man, but if you can AI generate something better and faster, people will watch it.
I mean, the next generation doesn't seem to have much interest in IP anyways these days.
I mean, look, there's a lot of people out there that aren't interested in knowing how to do this stuff. They're not even interested in being like, oh, make me this. What'll happen is you'll still have people saying, oh, you should check out this, and there'll still be a small group of people that, whether you call them creators or whether you call them whether they're people that just know how to prompt AI properly to get the best result. There will be people that will be just, oh, you should check out this version. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be a situation where just everybody makes their own, because there are people that are just not interested.
I have literally zero interest in doing that. Like, maybe the idea that Disney sets up their AI center and somebody says, go watch this version of it.
A great company could come along and say, we are the no AI YouTube. And YouTube's frankly already doing this. They've obviously taken off thousands, millions of channels already and videos, and then that's been in the news. But whenever there are problems, people can make money off the solutions. And to me, I think we're going to see a massive wave of authenticity being used as a currency in a lot of ways.
And I'll tell you, historically, I think that's not correct. One example would be auto-tune, if we can go creative. I remember when I was a kid, people complaining about synthetic music and computers. I remember when Fruity Loops came out and we were doing beats on our computer, and they were bands that we knew that were slightly older, that they were like, this is lame, man. You got to play a real instrument. And of course I did. I was like, oh, okay, I'll play a real instrument. Now all the top songs are electronically produced. Some musicians literally do nothing but auto-tune. And now we're in the AI music era where I'm going to tell you, AI music it requires right now creativity. So for me, I write songs, load them into AI, and it finishes them in 30 seconds. The creativity comes from me, which makes the songs better than average. If you ask the AI just to make a song, it usually makes something bad. So you are going to have minimal work. Again, production decrease. You could argue it's a production increase because now we're getting 500 million songs. But what I mean is the amount of labor and the value produced will be so minimal, no one's going to pay you for it. You are not going to be able to buy a car, a house, or have a family based on your ability to prompt an AI.
No, but I mean, like, look, that same argument was made when streaming started, right? And obviously there is a significant decrease in the revenue for artists and for labels. But, you know, making music didn't go away, you know, by individual people.
But we're not talking about the same thing. We're not talking. So when it comes to streaming, we're talking about mass distribution and replicability of a song. Mm-hmm. And so we saw first, revenue flattened because people were selling music. Selling music is no longer a component in whether or not your song does well. The streaming platforms can just put you on rotation and then claim you did well, and all of a sudden you're famous. You're on top because they decided that they would put you in rotation for their top songs. With this, we're talking about going on Pandora and, or Spotify's a better example because Pandora isn't doing nearly as well. What happens when Atlantic goes to, Atlantic will go to like Spotify and they'll say, listen, we know that you really want Taylor Swift. Well, we want to make sure that you put some of our other artists in your default streaming for top hits, your playlists, so that we can sell can sell them too. And we want to do shows and we want to get revenue from the streaming. What happens when Atlantic says, I don't want to pay Taylor Swift? She made $1 billion for herself. Why would I want to be bothered by that? We don't need to do 360 deals anymore. We can just create a fake person and music and own it completely, put that in rotation. I am telling you, this chain of events has happened before and it will happen again. So for instance, when I entered the scene, I'm at National Association of Broadcasters in the Netherlands. Where was I? What city was I? I can't remember. And at this event, they put me on a side stage to talk about new online streaming, live streaming, podcast stuff. On the main stage, the prominent journalists of the major cable network said, that's not real, don't watch it, it's untrustworthy and it's bad. And the audience rejected it, saying, why should I trust you over him? On the side stage, we talked about the revolution. That for a phone for $400, I can broadcast from anywhere in the world. Whereas the big networks were still using $200,000 rigs and trucks. We don't need it anymore. We figured it out. We cut the costs down, and where there used to be one network, there were now 7,000 in the same city, and the network could no longer compete, lost money, laid people off, and they're struggling. CNN's being sold left and right. It's a prestige brand at this point. For us, what's happening now to us and everybody else, you are noticing this if you take a look at any political commentator, they've become retarded. Look at all the people that have decided Israel is it. Why is Israel it? Because there's 2 billion Muslims in the world and you need more people to watch your content. Otherwise, you're not making money. It's not just that it's harder to get views. Take a look at all of the major shows. Some of them are doing really well. What are they doing that's doing really well? Well, Tucker and Candace do really well complaining about Israel and talking about how they have a great foreign audience. Candace flies to Russia. Well, that works for them, I guess. Our audience has been we've done all right, actually. For whatever reason, we've done well. The amount of viewers that we have right now is comparable to where we were 4 years ago, which is the political off season. And we were doing well last year. The views I get per video on my show seem to be fairly static. So I think we have a dedicated audience. You guys rock. There are some other really big channels that have lost a tremendous amount of their viewership. People have talked about how Ben Shapiro lost his viewership. And people make the argument that it's because he's a neocon and he's pro-Israel. The people who are pro-Israel didn't disappear. Ben Shapiro's fans didn't cease to exist. They didn't have some kind of major awakening where they realized he was wrong. It's an infinite amount of competition. So without calling out too many people, I'll throw Megyn Kelly into the mix. Take a look at how many views she's getting on her full podcast these days. She's certainly bragging about getting hundreds of millions of views, but her show gets like 100 to 200K. Not bad, but down from where it was. Why? You can see this in every facet. Joe Rogan's episode from yesterday has 450, maybe it's at 500,000 views right now on YouTube. This is Rogan. He used to get 3 million in every episode. I think we are headed for a cultural crisis and an economic crisis because of the speed at which AI is rolling out.
The economic crisis that Tim's talking about isn't, I don't think that it'll be AI that does it. I think that it's going to take the robotics industry in conjunction with AI, because there's still so many jobs out there that people do with their hands, but robots are coming that will be able to do all of those. Once AI is capable of, once you get an AGI that can actually navigate the world like a person does, which is maybe 18 months to 2 years away.
It's already here.
Well, okay, so once it's put into an AI and available for the for public consumption, to where you can buy the product. So if you've got Tesla's talking about the Optimus being $25,000. Maybe the service life on it is 5 years. That's significantly cheaper than an individual for 5 years worth of payroll. Once they can do that, then you'll see, I think, the significant disruption.
But again, I'm just curious what you think on this, Tim. So sure, it will put the plumbers out of business or the builders or anything like that. But also it is adding productivity to your life. Like, you would have spent more than $25,000 doing all the things that robot does for you over those 5 years.
Yeah, kind of like how we had manufacturing in the United States, and then we gave it all to China, and then we ended up losing all of these, all the cultural infrastructure, all the jobs were sold off, and I think
culture's another thing. I think I agree with you largely on all the cultural stuff, but just I use an example in skateboarding. They said if we have the Chinese make the products, we will get more profit, right? Now there's zero profit because there's no one to buy skateboards anymore. So what happens is they send all the factories to China and a couple other countries, but China largely. China started making all the skateboards. So all new skateboarding started emerging in China. The economics of skateboarding in the United States was extracted until nobody skateboarded anymore. And now skateboarding is completely dead, and you're lucky. We're actually one of the biggest skateboard distributors because we sold 300 skateboards the other day, which is insane. 300! Skateboarding is an Olympic sport. How is that possible? So I would argue, here's what happens. You eliminate these trade jobs and you bring in robots to do it. You will then end up with all of those. Let me give you a better example, is the story of Tom's shoes. Tom's said, for every pair of shoes you buy, we will send a free pair to a needy family in Africa. And they destroyed the economy in several local villages and led to starvation and death. Why? Because all the people who made shoes were not out of work. When these robots roll out at this speed, and you argue, I will have more money to spend, indeed. The problem is, who's going to buy my pancakes when the plumber has no money? So I go to my diner and I say, we just saved $1,000. We saved $1,000 this year because we use a rented Optimus spot for all of our trade work. Hey, how come no one's shopping here anymore? Then the guy walks in who used to be the plumber and he says, sorry, I just don't have any money anymore. I used to work for you. You just said they rented out the Optimus spot. So you rented it from
Tesla?
Yeah,
so the big corporation can make billions of dollars extracting the value from the regular working class people, and then the plumber has no job anymore and he can't buy things. So that's why Bernie Sanders is saying we got to because these ideas. Look, Bernie's not a smart guy. The best idea he could come up with was let's take half their money. That's not going to work because you can't displace 10 economic units for one, then tax the one at 50% and think that half economic unit is going to cover the cost of the guy who lost 10.
Yeah, you bring up Tesla. I think here's my problem. It sounds very communist, very socialist to me. You brought up a company. You're acting like that company is one person, Elon Musk, making all this money, but Tesla has made, hundreds, thousands of millionaires. And so I think there's a lot.
What does that have to do with the point that I made?
Well, the point that I'm making is that there are, once again,
congratulations to the engineers at SpaceX and Tesla.
No, exactly right. So I think there will still be companies that will innovate, that will continue to make great products using AI.
Sure. So what does a plumber do when he loses his job to a robot in 3
Well, I don't know the answer to that because I don't know what that person's skills are outside of
is not
plumbing.
automation from robots and artificial intelligence. It is the speed at which it is happening. If this guy aged out and he was retiring and the company brought in, Gen Alpha is only half the size of Gen Z, probably intentionally. If I was conspiratorial, I'd argue that the Malthusians, since the 70s and since DARPA began building artificial intelligence, planned for population collapse intentionally because they knew this was going to happen. So eventually, you have people saying, there are no plumbers. What do we do? Don't worry. We got Tesla bots just for you. But that can't happen overnight. That's going to be 10 years. That's going to be when Gen Alpha is 35 and they're trying to find trades workers for their homes. Then we're going to be like the robots will take the place of the plumber. But once again, there's still the problem of when you automate the job, you don't automate the customer. So by eliminating an individual, a single plumber is not just a plumber. He's a customer for a carpenter, as the carpenter is the customer for the plumber. You eliminate one of those from the equation, now the other one doesn't have a customer, so he can't afford to rent the bot either. These are the economic problems we're trying to face, or we're trying to solve, that Bernie and literally no one, even Elon Musk said, we need a high-value universal basic income to solve this problem. Even Elon doesn't know how to solve it.
So that was a really good take from the Tim Pool show. And you can see that Tim Pool, he gets a little bit his blood up, and it turns into a little bit of a tyrant on his own show. It's hard to debate with him or to have any other point of view. So it's kind of a contest of trying to debate with some guy who owns the show, right? And so it's hard to tell like what will really happen here. Will the economy collapse because of the speed and acceleration of AI innovation and the lack of people being able to adjust and find new jobs and companies to provide new opportunities for a suddenly displaced workforce? Or will the workforce being savvy and flexible and easily adapting to the changes be able to move to different opportunities, create new companies and create new wealth and be able to keep everyone employed without destroying the economy? I guess that's the ultimate question here. And you can see how this AI issue, this sudden development and sudden innovation of incredibly advanced technology is going to displace the world. And you can see how this will lead to what has been the missing link in biblical prophecy, how we arrive at this place where the world gets so catastrophically shifted on its foundations. And we get to this point where we could have these mass disruptions, or we could have this massive depopulation, or we could have such massive wars. And you can see that AI is a weapon, and it is an arms race as we see the United States and China moving to be the first one to lay their hands on the weapon and to be able to use it against the other. And you can see that this is going to lead to nowhere good as we go there very fast. And of course, the printing press is just the reality of life. These kind of disruptions of technology take place. There's no way to go back and be like, oh, we shouldn't have created the printing press. Like somebody was going to create it. It was just a natural course of events. These are the natural dominoes that fall in the course of human life. And there's no way to go back and control and reassess the nature of reality in such a way as to ask the kind of question, we shouldn't have the printing press because of the disruption it caused, right? It caused people to be able to find out information very fast. It caused people to discover that the truth of the Bible was something that was a reality of God's will and God's commandments, and the relationship with Jesus Christ was something other than what the power elite and the dominant Roman religio-cultic establishment had told everybody it was. So when people found out that Rome was lying and that the priestcraft of Rome was a bunch of heinous and duplicitous sorcery, and people turned away from it, it caused these massive disruptions and a massive displacement in the established institutional power of that day. And that's kind of what you're going to see today. You're going to see the displacement of institutional power and certain corporations who just lose their purpose and lose their meaning and lose all the edge upon which they operated on will become dissipated. You can see like tax companies like H&R Block, for instance, would just become totally useless because I can just download an app for free and hit a couple buttons and basically do everything that they used to do for me. Now, on the flip side of that, the idea that you're going to get a plumber robot is kind of ridiculous. I think that we're a long way off from creating robots who can come into your house and be able to navigate up into your attic and crawl around in your attic and glue a little piece of plastic pipe together and then crawl back out without destroying your home. That concept is kind of silly and ridiculous. I think the tools could become more advanced. I think we could get more and more robotic tools, and we could get robotics that could help industries, but you're always going to have human beings deploy these kind of robotics. You won't be able to have a robot that totally can replace a human being in the sense of being so agile. So yeah, you can have robots run, jump over a table, do a backflip, but that has nothing to do with the idea of having to crawl into a delicate situation and carefully fix a solution that's very delicate, that's very fragile, in a situation where you can't just step through people's drywall on their ceiling and crush in their bedroom ceiling with a bunch of insulation onto their bed, right? You understand? So the delicacy and the dexterity with which a human being can operate is not easy to replace. It's easy to replace certain paperwork and certain human resources departments and certain administrative functionality within certain companies, but the idea that you're going to get a guy to go in get a robot to go into a truck and go up and fix power lines and not create a disaster is kind of ridiculous. You're always going to have human beings do these delicate operations. I don't think there'll ever be a point where you have a robot that can totally replace a human functionality. And so that's where we're at. That's just how I look at it. I've just been in the construction business long enough to see how carefully human beings have to operate every day as they do work around each other, work in dangerous environments, and carefully construct buildings up on high ladders and lifts and turn their bodies and crawl into crawl spaces and do all kinds of things that a robot can never do, right? Of course, I think we'll create tools, like I said, that will help. But there is definitely going to be displacement within the white-collar workforce, right, who have less delicate human physical tasking, right? Just sitting behind a desk and punching keys in a keyboard. We're talking on the phone, right? Are tasks that are more easily replaced. And so I think that the target here, the danger here is that it will displace highly trained, educated workers and doctors and counselors and lawyers and make them obsolete and create a situation where the actual economic backbone and the financial middle class in the country is destroyed. And of course, that middle class creates smaller companies, pays for lawn care workers, pays for houses to be painted, pays for everything, right? These middle class, middle income people, the middle management of America are the individuals who spend their extra income in all the ways that make America such an incredibly massive economy. And without them, I think we'll see the displacement of all these, like we said, lawn care workers, pizza delivery drivers, house painters, home plumbers, like all these individuals who depend on homeowners and the middle income individuals could, in a downstream trickle-down effect, destroy the whole American economy. So with that, let's get back to, that was a little departure from our whole real conversation here that we're having about elite journalism in America. So let's get back to our subject of our particularly incredible elite journalist and return to our podcast comments.
Digital down, all gone. Indigo children now come. Born now the age of the innocent one. Analog timepiece sky wide. Sync to the ticker inside. Move to the rhythm of the moon and tide. Sirius, Venus, and the lunar child. EMP from the mother and son. 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 To the digital.
But let's just get back to the Savanah Hernandez, our elite journalist, and discuss now the whole issue of her assault, right? So she's at an Antifa rally, and she is pretty famous for covering Black Lives Matter and covering Antifa riots. And in this particular instance, she was assaulted. I think she's pretty famous for that. I think everybody in America saw the breakdown of what happened to her. And so she ends up on Laura Ingraham to discuss it, and here we'll just play the clip for you here now to begin to just try to fully encompass our analysis of Savanah Hernandez, elite journalist.
Here exclusively to tell her story, Savanah Hernandez, TPUSA Frontlines reporter. Savanah, I was very worried about you when I saw this video. It's very scary. I was standing exactly where you were standing back in January. And these people are crazy. Why did it escalate so quickly?
Well, let's make no mistake, Laura, this escalated because they found out that I work for Turning Point USA. This isn't the first time that I have been confronted and assaulted at this point for journalism on the streets of the United States of America. But since Charlie Kirk's assassination, this is now the third time that people have come up to me after I have not been interviewing, not been engaging, but simply being on the street and filming a protest, figured out I work for Turning Point USA, and have made a point to confront me, to threaten me, to harass me, and now brutally assault me to prove a point. So that's why this escalated, Laura. I wasn't interviewing anybody. I wasn't engaging with anybody. I was, and I apologize. This is the first time I'm talking about this assault, and I'm scared to report, Laura. This is my job. It's what I've been doing for the last 6 years. And I'm terrified to do my job. I can't even interview people properly on the street because I got brutally assaulted and pushed to the ground by a 250-pound man for simply going and reporting on anti-ICE activities. I made a point not to engage, Laura, because I know the left wing is violent. They assassinated Charlie Kirk last year, and now they're coming for each and every single Turning Point USA employee because they know they can get away with it because the local jurisdictions aren't going to charge them. Now, luckily, the sheriffs are planning on bringing forward charges. I hope. I did tell them I wanted to press charges. This has been elevated to both the DOJ and the DHS. They are opening an investigation as well. But I'm horrified, Laura. I'm horrified.
Well, this is the United States of America. You were just standing there, and I know exactly how you feel because they surrounded me the same exact way, and they start screaming in your ear. And, you know, you stuck around there a little longer than I did because I got in my car because I didn't want to deal with this. But this is their MO. They don't want anyone there because they don't want anyone knowing the truth about how many of them are paid, how this is organized, who's funding it, and what they are really all about. They don't want anyone to know. If they were proud of their movement, they'd be like, welcome, you know, we'll be happy to talk to you. But they don't want that.
Absolutely, Laura. And this attack was so horrific that you now have the radical left-wing streamers and left-wing activists coming out and denouncing this attack, saying, oh, we shouldn't touch women. That's probably a bridge too far. But again, you know, I was targeted because I work for Turning Point USA, because I'm a brown woman who thinks the wrong thing, because I am a Christian. They were mocking me for my religion. They were mocking me for my political views. They, like I said, they told me that I had no right to be on a public street, and they made sure to run me out and brutally assault me multiple times as I was trying to leave. So that's the United States of America in 2026. And my main question is, how was this allowed to happen in President Trump's America? So,
well, you know, Laura, the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office better do its job here, because if there was a message from on high, this will not be tolerated, then it wouldn't have been tolerated. And the feeling here is that it's okay to do this. And that's the problem. Let's bring in Tom Homan, who is a border czar, who's going to join this conversation. We're going to have him separate segment. But Tom, this is insane. I saw it firsthand when I was in Minneapolis. These people are terrifying to young women. She's 5'4", and she's lucky she wasn't hurt worse.
And look, you know, and my heart goes out, and this shouldn't happen in the United States. But you know what feeds all this? Mayors and governors and members of Congress who want to vilify Republicans. They want to vilify President Trump. They want to vilify Turning Point USA because they have conservative beliefs. I mean, they attack journalists. Well, they also attack sworn law enforcement officers. We're living in a country now where an ICE officer gets attacked daily. These protests, these attacks not only happen where Sarah was, it also happened in Los Angeles, Portland, Chicago. It's an ongoing dilemma, and that's why I'm grateful the FBI is stepping in. DOJ is going to seek prosecution on this, because at this point, I don't trust any local jury in a sanctuary jurisdiction. I'd much rather see the feds pick it up and charge it with a federal crime, because the sentence is going to be a lot more stringent and it sends a strong message. But we cannot give up on this. We got to keep prosecuting these people. 18 U.S.C. 111, interference, assault, record high number of prosecutions. We got to continue down that path and hold these people accountable. We cannot accept this as a norm in the United States of America.
And Savanah, we don't want anyone injured who are at these protests, or whatever we want to call them, protests, festivals. Sometimes they feel like festivals, depending on what the weather's like. But no one should be hurt for exercising their First Amendment rights. And Savanah, are you satisfied in your view that the FBI will be able to handle this?
I hope they do. Again, the DHS is involved as well, and I hope that, the full force of the federal government is utilized against these people to send a message to all of the radical left wing who have been targeting journalists for years, attacking us, harassing us, censoring us, and silencing us. I really hope that a message is sent here with this, and it's followed through with.
Savanah, please stay out there doing what you're doing.
So that's a really good clip. I think this is the perfect example with them coming on there with Tom Holman to point out what is the use, what is the facility and the utility of left-wing racial violence to the deep state and the ratcheting up of federal war powers, martial law, and the extreme abuse of leftist politics within these cities and in these particular counties and city councils, in these sanctuary cities where it's becoming a lawless breakdown and anarchy to the extent that the public, that the American citizens are in danger because of this lawlessness, and it just falls to the federal powers. And this whole process of left-wing racial violence empowers the federal government and anticipates and furthers this move towards martial law. Hey guys, it's just another quick break here. We got to take a minute out to just remind you of our incredible sponsor, Wendy'sLimited.com. Wendy's Boutique Limited has the most incredible selection of boutique couture and just the hottest catalog selection of designer fashion trends. And you're going to get a good look at Wendy's personal closet, and you're going to be able to get a chance to see what she's been into and what she is recommending as the hottest new designer trends out there. And of course, she gets the best deals, and she's on top of like everything that's coming out that is just the most incredible, beautiful women's apparel and jewelry and shoes and just everything that makes beautiful women so incredibly, vividly beautiful. And we just want to recommend Wendy's Boutique Limited. Wendy'sLimited.com has just been such an incredible partner for us. We need you guys to go over there and check it out. Wendy'sLimited.com is going to give you a good deal. I think right now, for the rest of the month, if you go over there and do an order with her, you're going to get 10% off. You're going to get 10% off your first order if you go over there and do an order for the rest of the month. So just go ahead and let them know in the notes there, and send them a note, an email that you heard about Wendy'sLimited.com at the Looking Glass Forum. And Looking Glass Forum is going to get you an incredible discount. So I hope you will support us and support our incredible sponsor, Wendy'sLimited.com. Wendy's Limited Selection, guys. You got to check it out. So we're just going to try to wrap up our episode. We got a little long. We got into the weeds and a whole lot of different subject matter, which is kind of my want to do. I like to divert our attention over to various issues and various subject matter in our work here that we do. And so let's listen to a little bit more of Savanah Hernandez. She's going to get into a couple of scrapes here, which is her typical motif to go down and to get right into the middle of the cultural controversies and bring us footage, bring us information about what is going on at these migrant hotels. Apparently, we paid billions and billions of dollars. I mean, this is while the Somalians were robbing us blind over in Minnesota. We paid billions of dollars to put a bunch of homeless, illiterate, jobless invaders who just stormed over our border unwanted, illegally, right? It's like somebody breaking into your house, but you just pay to put them up and feed them inside your home for a few months just because you can't find a way to get rid of them. I'm not really sure what the analogy would be, but she is going to go down and to venture into these areas working for Turning Point USA and to bring us kind of the confrontations, right, where individuals looming around, lingering around, trying to find a way to block or impede journalism, right? They don't want anyone to see inside these quote unquote migrant hotels where they're, I guess, the American taxpayer are paying. It's bad enough that we have to pay for these degenerate ghetto bums and drug dealers and welfare queens and slobs to pay for them, right? But now we have to pay for the entire third world, you know? Some 5 billion people are going to come over the border and the American taxpayer and working class has to somehow subsidize all that and pay for them to live in a hotel now. I would like somebody to pay for me to live in a hotel or pay my rent, right? That would be nice. But no, this is the ultimate agenda of left-wing, progressive, Marxist communists and the DSA, right? The Democrat Socialists of America, those perverted scumbag murder pigs, right? Of course, they love murder, right? As long as it's directed at the European pale-skinned class of quote-unquote white people in this country who have been deemed the colonizer and the oppressor, right? And so this is a war. This is a war. This is an existential conflict. This is a battle to the knife. I think it's time for Americans to wake up and recognize what Savanah Hernandez is bringing to the forefront here, what she is videotaping in her exploits and in the scoops that she's bringing onto social media so that we can see what's really going on. And so a lot of this is going to be video, but we can just listen. And of course, I'll do my best to include these clips so you can watch. But she's basically going to be going into environments that are hostile territory. She's going to be videotaping illegal invaders who are taking over park benches and taking over public spaces and beginning to harass and assault Americans in our own country, in our own spaces, right? And it's fascinating to watch them try to tell her what to do, try to tell American citizens what we can and can't do in our own country. So let's take a listen here.
Put themselves at risk talking to a right-wing.
Okay, so I'm putting people at risk because I work for Turning Point USA. I was standing here and I've been trying to report on the migrant hotel here, and I've had these two come up to me. This guy's been pretty nice, actually. These two come up to me, police my language, tell me I'm not nice, tell me that I need to leave because my words are harmful.
No one said that you were not nice. I think what happened is you found that your narrative was not sticking.
So everybody has seen how I've reported on this, and you guys said, you guys can go on my Twitter account, and they have no idea what I reported.
It was great to meet you, dear.
She's calling me the wrong name because she's extremely rude. She didn't like my reporting from the DNC. She doesn't like that I say Kamala instead of Kamala. Again, she's so irrelevant that nobody even knows how to pronounce her name correctly. And so this woman's been just walking around bullying people. It is what it is. Welcome to trying to actually report on real stories if you don't have the correct narrative regarding what's going on here. What's going on here is you have illegal immigrants in this area that are living here, and you have homeless in Denver that are being completely ignored. So the issue here is that there's a housing crisis in America right now. There's homeless Americans, and the entire city is focusing in on covering up this issue, and then you have people like this that come and shut me down because I'm reporting what's actually going on. So there you guys go. They're bullies. She's with Brother Jeff. I don't know who that is. I was standing here not even speaking to them, and then they came up to me and started yelling at me. So goes life. I'm sorry, but this is the United States. We have the First Amendment here. We are allowed to actually film. This is my First Amendment right, and you're not going to shut me down. Okay, well, you don't get to tell me what I can and cannot film. You guys are out here in public today, so, welcome to the United States of America here. Where are you guys from? Where are you from? Where are you from?
No fine, bro.
Where are you from?
Yeah.
No, nobody wants to talk to me about where you guys are from? No? All right. All right.
All right, so there you can hear the kind of gritty, underground, hardcore reporting that Savanah Hernandez does. That's why we got to put her over here in our elite journalist category. She's going to be elite journalist number 11, and she has earned this slot for sure. And we're going to just have to defend Team America here, guys. And she deserves the respect and the kudos that we're going to give her props here. And as we close out this whole podcast segment, we're going to just jump over to this interesting take that she had with the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton show. Everybody knows that. Everybody has heard of that particular podcast. And she had an opportunity to jump on there and chat with them about what was her feel, what were the vibes down there at the Carmelo Anthony kind of freak show that was unfolding down there. The pro-murder supporters that apparently wanted this kid to be able to murder a kid at a track meet and just walk away. And the kind of shocking and despicable human characters that are running around there who are just surprised that they have, and this of course is coming from their entire community. They've raised these individuals to be unlimited bastards, right? Just disgraceful and disgruntled scum who have just become a blight on our entire society. And now they're totally shocked when the criminal justice system is now going to put this kid away for life. And good luck that, him trying to, be adjusted and sane after 17 years in a prison cell. And we'll see if he is the kind of individual who can weather that kind of tremendous, horrifying, punitive sentence to ultimately be a good prisoner, right? A model inmate, and be able to get out halfway through the sentence on good behavior. We'll see. We'll follow up in 17 years and we'll let you know what happens there. But of course, that was just a slap on the wrist. It's kind of sad. It's kind of retarded that we have individuals who can't even get out on bond, like Chud the Builder as an example. And I don't think advised that his behavior, his particular attitude, and the way he was speaking to people was a very polite or neighborly way to go around and carry yourself. But you know what? It's America. We have free speech. And you're not allowed just to beat people over the head because you don't like the words they use, especially if you're a ridiculous, moronic hypocrite who uses the same exact word every other sentence. And every single rap song you like has the same N-word in it. And then somehow when you hear an individual that you don't like using it, then you think that you can beat him on the head or try to murder him. And then, of course, when he fires his weapon in self-defense, then they won't let him out of jail, right? We have a major problem in this country, guys. We have a major problem. It's going to get resolved in the worst case scenario. I think that's what we're facing. I think that's what's being framed for the American people and for our society is the path of most resistance as we begin to recognize that we have to sort out our entire society. And on top of this massive racist dilemma that we are facing as a people, we have the 30 or 40 million illegal invaders running around here who know fully that they are expected to leave, that they are here illegally, that they are breaking the law, that they are taking jobs and siphoning off incomes and destroying our economy and our society in a way that is most repulsive. And yet they just are force raping their presence here in our country anyway, right? And they know that they're going to get pulled over, and it's a flip of a coin whether, depending on what kind of county or what sanctuary city they're in, and whether the cops are actually going to do their job and get them out of our society. And so we have a massive, critical, civil conflagration and race-based societal conflict that is brewing in this country. And we can see that the Democrat Party is being energized by anti-American and communist anarchists who are here to try to bring down this country. So we have to survive. We have to fight back. We have to prepare, guys, to weather this storm. And as we go out, let's listen to this fascinating take from the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton podcast.
I was afraid, got in the cause of my fear. I guess I was wrong about all. I'm still here, just pictures of you on my shelf now. I guess you were wrong about all. Well, I hope you'll find out wherever you are. Can anybody show me the easy way to break your heart? away. Can't pretend I didn't do you no wrong. I'll keep watching as the days go flying by. Oh, I'll keep on counting as the days go passing by. Oh, oh my.
We're joined by Savanah Hernandez, Turning Point USA Frontlines reporter. She was covering the trial of Carmelo Anthony, which we know ended with a guilty verdict and a 35-year prison sentence for Anthony. Savanah, thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Tell us, were you there? Give us the full scope before we get into some of the aftermath here. You were there each day. What was it like, inside, outside, the courtroom, some of those atmospherics of your reporting?
Sure. So getting inside of the courthouse was in itself extremely difficult because the judge in this case really put a lot of security protocols in place to try to keep this, trial as secure as possible. So I was able to go inside for jury selection, and that's when I saw first look at Carmelo Anthony, and the jury selection process was really interesting in itself because the way that it worked is the courtroom itself was sectioned off for friends, family, and then just 6 members of the media. But then there was a separate room where the actual jury selection and then the trial was being live streamed to, and then people could line up every single day, members of the public, and there were 27 spots for that room. However, people were lining up as early as 3 a.m. to try and get into this trial. The judge, one of the security protocols that he had put in place was that there was a curfew on courthouse grounds, so nobody could be at the courthouse from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m., but people would line up on the public sidewalk as early as 3 o'clock in the morning to try to get a spot in line for this alternate, room that was open to the public. So very competitive to actually even try to get into the courthouse at all. However, again, all of the action on my end was outside because you did have groups of Carmelo Anthony supporters that were there every single day. I got there last Monday, and I wanted to be there for the jury selection process, and the Carmelo supporters were there since day one of this trial. On top of that, I noticed as well that people began donating to Carmelo Anthony's Give, Send, Go as well as soon as the trial started last week. So that was a little bit of what the actual scene was like, being on the ground. Like I said, I was able to get into the courthouse for jury selection, saw that first look of Carmelo Anthony, who, again, as everybody has seen now that his booking photos have been released, he did shave his head. He had a very youthful look, youthful appearance. One of the things that his attorney was trying to do since the start of this case and during jury selection was refer to Carmelo Anthony as Mello as a way to again, this is my opinion, try to bolster that very youthful appearance, that youthful look, and this youthful vibe surrounding Carmelo. So, again, that was kind of just what it was like being on the ground there.
Tell me about some of because the videos have gone, and I think some of them are even your videos, have gone very viral online of the Carmelo Anthony supporters outside saying some pretty jaw-dropping, eyebrow-raising things, especially after the verdict was announced. What percentage of them would you say were black? What were some of the things that were, what was that like? Were they squaring off with supporters of Austin Metcalf's family? I mean, take us to some of the melee outside the courthouse day to day, and particularly after the verdict was announced.
Sure. So I unfortunately was not on the ground for the actual verdict. I had a legal meeting that I had to be at for my Minneapolis case. However, I was there the entire week prior. And again, we did see the footage that came out as the verdict was read when the verdict first came out, and it's exactly what I was expecting. Now, the week before, these Carmelo Anthony supporters were extremely aggressive. I had gone up to them last week on Monday or Tuesday when I had first gotten there, and I basically just wanted to ask them very basic questions. Why are you here? Why is this important to you? What are your thoughts on this trial? And they were extremely aggressive. And at first I thought, okay, maybe they know that I work for Turning Point USA and they feel like that isn't a friendly media organization. However, as the national media started showing up, they had this exact same reaction to everybody. And there was a local reporter there who had tapped on the shoulder of one of the leaders who was leading the chants, such as, our black youth deserve protection too. All of them were wearing We Decree Carmelo Anthony Will Be Free shirts. And they were there chanting about how Carmelo Anthony was without a doubt innocent. They were not following the trial. They were not following the facts of this case. They were there every single day simply to declare that Carmelo Anthony was innocent. And anybody in the media who tried to speak with them was met with a lot of aggression. So going back to this local reporter, he tapped on the shoulder of one of the leaders of this group to simply try to get his name for the story that he was writing. And this Carmelo supporter acted like this guy tried to punch him in the face. And a mob quickly formed around him, and others had to hold this leader back. So this is one of the most aggressive groups I have ever encountered. I've covered protests for years, and this is one of the most aggressive. They would not let any media speak to them. Anytime anyone went over, simply to, again, get the name of their group, their organization, ask them a simple question, it was very aggressive. And then you did have Metcalf supporters that were showing up last week simply to wave American flags, and they were met with some of the most heinous racial slurs that I have ever heard. And again, going back to that aggression, it was quotes such as, "You're going to be pushing up daisies just like Metcalf. If I was close enough to you, I would push you into the grave." And these were simply people that were there to support Austin Metcalf and his family. So that was, again, the week before the actual verdict was read, and then I did have friends that were on the ground for the verdict being read. They state that, again, there was a large group that was there. However, it was a few key actors, all of them, yes, African-American, who were very vocal, very aggressive, very angry about this guilty verdict. But again, this was not surprising at all to me based on what I had seen last week in terms of these supporters really not caring to follow the trial and really trying their hardest to make this about race, when in reality it was about Carmelo Anthony murdering Austin Metcalf. Again, nobody on the witness stand brought forward race or how this was, anything that was tied to race or racism at all. However, for some reason, multiple black activists tried their hardest to make this a racially divisive story and try to highlight how this entire trial was somehow tied to white supremacy and racism.
Well, you might have heard or seen, Savanah, that member of Congress Jasmine Crockett, this is Cut 26 team, you just got to hear this, actually. I wanted to have you react to it. Play 26.
35 years for a kid who had decided to go under a tent that was not his team's tent as it was raining, and simply didn't want to be put out in the rain by some random kid that he didn't know who was larger than him. Listen, a lot of people don't know what it is to live as a black person in this country, but just like you can give the benefit of the doubt to so many police officers when they go out and they shoot some black unarmed person, even though they are trained, the fact that there was little to no mercy seen or humanity seen when this black boy said that I was scared.
People don't know what it's like to live as a black person in this country, she says. Everyone, including eyewitnesses who were black, agreed that Carmelo Anthony just dared someone to try to actually put a hand on him to move him from the tent and then stab the kid in the heart.
Exactly, Buck. And again, what the defense tried to argue was labeled as disastrous by, multiple people, by many members of the media. The defense had no defense, quite frankly, of Carmelo Anthony, and even the witnesses that they called forward stated that Carmelo Anthony was in the wrong and that he provoked all of this. Again, Jasmine Crockett coming forward and trying to frame Carmelo Anthony as the victim in this situation is quite frankly disgusting. She also went on her podcast and stated that she wasn't sure if the knife that Carmelo Anthony used could be labeled as a, quote, deadly weapon.
Again, we actually, here, since you mentioned it, we have that. Play 29, guys.
Was it a switch? I don't know what he had.
It was like it seemed like it was a multi-tool, almost like a Swiss Army.
Like with like with the little scissors and everything and whatever. So it was small. Well, I would argue the size of it alone, you wouldn't even think it's a deadly weapon.
She thinks that the weapon used to kill someone is not a deadly weapon. I think that's actually, Savannah, in many ways, kind of a perfect encapsulation of Jasmine Crockett's legal thinking and capabilities.
Exactly. And it's so frustrating, too, because we have such a strong victim mentality in this country that you have a cut and dry case of murder, and the jury was able to deliberate on this in mere hours. This trial actually happened very quickly. Let's not forget that it really started last Thursday, and then from Thursday to Tuesday, the jury saw everything that they needed to, and they were able to come to this guilty verdict very quickly because, again, like you just said, Buck, even black teammates, black people who were there that day stated that Carmelo Anthony was in the wrong in this case. So for a sitting congresswoman, thank goodness that she's not going to be reelected and we won't have to deal with her in Texas anymore. But for a sitting congresswoman to try to make this a racial thing, instead of just saying, you know what, looking at the facts of this case, this was a murder and this was wrong, it's really disheartening to see that this is the type of rhetoric that is coming out of some subsets of the black community. And I actually did interview a woman who was there in support of Carmelo. She went viral as well after the verdict was read off because she was basically saying, I have 5 kids. What am I supposed to tell them now? I had interviewed her the week prior, and I asked, if evidence comes out that shows that Carmelo Anthony is guilty of murder and that he was not acting in self-defense, is the black community going to accept that? And she said, no, we're going to stand with ours regardless. So I don't even know how to begin to understand this mindset of we are going to stand by our own, whether or not they murdered somebody in cold blood. But it's a real problem in this country.
I'm wondering how many people were outside the courthouse, just roughly speaking, when you were covering this? And did you see any vocal, non-black Carmelo Anthony supporters outside the courthouse?
When I was out there, I want to say there was 30 to 45 for the day that the verdict is read off. I know that there was, a much larger group than that. But when I was there, nope, they were all black supporters of Carmelo Anthony. And again, they were very much trying to make this a racial thing. This was very much, we're not going to look at the facts of the case. We are solely here because he is the same color as us, and therefore he is innocent because he's another black American. Completely ignoring the facts of the case, completely ignoring the fact that an entire family lost their son. They have been going through this. And also, too, one of the things that was kind of overlooked was the victim impact statements, right? You had Austin Metcalf's father, and his twin brother, Hunter, basically talk about how much they have been grieving. Austin Metcalf's father stating that he has been filled with rage, telling Carmelo that he failed his own family, he failed himself, he failed society as a whole. Austin's mother coming forward and stating that Carmelo got out of this easy because he got 35 years, but she's been sentenced to a life without her son. And then Hunter simply asking Carmelo to look at him in the eye when he gave his testimony. Carmelo was unable to make eye contact with any of them. So it's really sad to see how this entire situation played out. Let's not forget as well that Carmelo's own family utilized this tragedy to fundraise, and they were able to raise $625,000 on behalf of Carmelo's, quote, defense fund. But again, that went toward putting them in a home that was almost $1 million. Initially, Carmelo was held on a $1 million bond, but they pled to a judge that they were in financial straits and they couldn't make bond, and they asked for that judge to lower, the bond to $250,000, which the judge ended up doing, and he was out on bond the entirety of, the lead up to this trial.
Savannah, honestly, looking at some of those videos, and I know you're saying that the people you interviewed, and now I can say because you were there, all of the supporters of Carmelo Anthony at the courthouse, at least, were black. And from what some of them have said, I actually do not believe that they think that he is innocent. I think they know what he did. I think that the attitude of some of the people at that courthouse was the white boy got what was coming to him, which is a different thing. I don't think that they think that Carmelo Anthony was innocent. I think that they're like, oh, you know, we got one on the other side here. We managed to take there was way too much dismissing of the actual evidence in the case. I think that there are some people out there who have so much animus that they felt that, like I said, that the white kid got what was coming to him here. And that was their attitude. It's not that, oh, Carmelo Anthony actually was acting to defend himself, because as you said, there was no self-defense case to be made here. Otherwise, I've told everybody, if somebody bumped you, in the subway, you could say they assaulted me, so I had to pull out a gun and shoot them. I mean, there has to be a reasonable standard. Thank you for the reporting you've done on this, Savanah. And Savanah Hernandez, everybody, TPUSA.
That's right. It's another word from our awesome sponsor, Wendy'sLimited.com. Wendy'sLimited.com is the hottest new styles in the fashion industry. You got to go check out Wendy'sLimited.com. And of course, Wendy's Boutique Limited is not sucked into all the vino and brainwash of the leftist political culture out there. We know what a woman is, and we're here to serve women. We're not here to be deceived by fake-looking dudes but dressed like women, right? No offense. And we're here to remind you that Wendy'sLimited.com is the leader in online boutique fashion design. We have our best selection of boutique couture, awesome designer trends, and the hottest limited catalog fashion anywhere. You got to come check out Wendy'sLimited.com. Our sponsor has been very generous and keeps us going here, so please come and check out the craze, Wendy'sLimited.com.